Well, it looks like we're on the air. And there's Richard Green. Sorry, we don't have a quality signal from Richard Green, but we are on the air, and we just watched Laura O'Connor walk around the airport trying to find a good signal and a quiet place for her to sit. There we have a systems tech taking care of our Yap TV studio, which is spread out all across the country. I'm not sure exactly what city Jahan Raymond is in, Jahan Raymond, but he is standing by to play us a beautiful song. I am in La Costa, California. Laura O'Connor is in Wisconsin at the airport. Richard Green is in Los Angeles. There's Richard Green waving hello. Yeah, you sound like you're in mission control. So, all right, you're gonna be muted, Richard Green, and we're gonna go right now. Jahan Raymond, what's up? It's Jason Mraz, man. How you been?
Good.
You been good?
Yeah.
So, Jahan, you visited me in the studio last summer. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Your hair's gotten a little longer, but I like it. I like that you're keeping it long. So we invited you on here to give us a little musical introduction, my friend. For those of you who've never seen Jahan play, how old are you now, Jahan? 10, 11? How old are you now? 10. All right, so Jahan, you play what, largely classical music, or you write your own music that's influenced by classical music?
Both.
Both. All right, well, you don't need to hear me talk anymore. Jahan, why don't you get us started while Richard Green clears his eyes? Go ahead and give us a song, Jahan. It'd be great to kick off this session with some music. Rad, dude. Now, was that by music or memory?
I composed it. I had the first phase music, but the rest was memory.
Wow. That's great, dude. Well, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to hear you play, man. Thanks for joining us here. You gonna stick with us and play a little bit later?
Yeah.
All right, man. Thank you. Richard, can we hear you yet? I don't know, man. Your microphone doesn't sound very good. I can only see your lips moving. You might have to write out your questions. There we go. Wow. All right, hold it steady. Tell us about Ohio. All right, there you go. Well, I had the pleasure of touring around Ohio yesterday with Vice President Joe Biden. I'm not sure who I'm looking at here. I'm assuming I'm just looking at. Am I looking at you? What's being cut here? Okay. Well, I had the pleasure of touring around Ohio yesterday with Joe Biden. We visited Lakewood, Ohio, just outside of Cleveland, Fremont, very rural Ohio, just outside of Toledo, and Lancaster, which I believe is Fairfield County, just outside of Columbus, Ohio. And I played a little music before the Vice President came out and gave some remarks. And what I saw was a really fired up Ohio, also a really beaten up Ohio. I feel sorry for the negative ads that are showing up on television and on the radio going back and forth, largely coming from the Romney campaign of all the negativity that's towards Barack Obama for America. But for those who were there showing up for Obama, you know, I saw the same hope and excitement that people had 4 years ago. You know, I was also getting to see, well, seeing Biden speak was most inspiring, and he talked a lot about character, talking about how character is judged not on what you do when people are watching, but what you do when no one is looking. And he pointed out a few things that Governor Romney had done, speaking about 47% of the American people needed the government to help them out, and they couldn't do anything on their own, essentially. And Romney said that remark when no one was watching, when he thought no one was watching. And then he pointed out the lies that had been in this campaign, such as Romney saying that GM was going to move their factories over to China, which GM came forward and said, no, we're not doing that. And so showing that kind of lie and showing that kind of character in a campaign makes us all wonder, what would a guy like that do in the presidency? So I was really grateful to get a big warm hug from Dr. Joe Biden and Biden himself at the end of the day. And my manager, who was with me, and his partner were able to thank him personally for all the work that the Obama administration has done for the LGBTQ community in pushing same-sex marriage. And Biden leaned in and he said, "It's about time, isn't it?" And he's a really warm guy, and it was a really special day, man. I was really, really happy that I could be a part of that. Yeah, you're still broken up, like you're on the moon, or like I'm on the moon. Oh, okay. Ian Somerhalder will be here soon. He and I had some nice emails back and forth today. We're looking forward to meeting online and having a chat today, while Jahan is hanging out, waiting to play us another song. Yeah, you guys want to hear another song from Jahan? Let's do it. Jahan, give us another ditty, man. For those of you just tuning in, Jahan is 10 years old, and he's a sorry to interrupt you. And he's a classical pianist, prodigy, who composes his own music in the style of classic composers. Check him out.
Thank you. Wow.
Yeah. Jahan is still playing. You calling me?
Wow. Wow.
Thanks, Jahan.
Thank you, John.
Hey, what's up, Ian?
How are you, buddy? Good to see you, man.
Yeah, you too, man. I see you got a surfboard in the back. Do you get the water often?
Oh, I don't know. That's actually a Teen Choice Award, believe it or not.
Oh, I've got one of those.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. There's a couple of them, actually.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
okay then.
baby.
Yeah.
Um, so how's it going, man?
It's going good. I'm not sure exactly who's on the program right now, other than you, myself, and Jahan, who hits us with a song every once in a while, which definitely keeps saving the day whenever we have a technical difficulty, because his feed is certainly clear.
Yeah,
Um,
John, it's beautiful, man. Thank you for that.
and I guess it's you and I and whoever else might be tuning in all over the world,
Yeah.
and it's an exciting day, 24 hours before an election, and what I can't stress to people enough, I've been making phone calls all morning, is just get to the polls. They're open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and cast your vote.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, here's the thing. Oh, I wish you could vote, Jahan. Soon you will be able to, man. But I couldn't agree with you more. The reality of it is that it is 24 hours, less than 24 hours before this starts. And the one thing I learned from Richard Green a number of weeks ago is, if you can believe this, that 98 million people didn't vote in '08.
Wow.
98 million. That is insane. I mean, that's a third of the population of the United States. And if you kind of think about it, it's one of those rights that we have that not a lot of people around the world ultimately have. And for us not to exercise that, I think is absolutely, it's a very sad moment, I think, in America to exercise that right. So hopefully what we can do with this, my friend, is to get people to the polls and to understand that every single vote counts, by virtue of the fact that a number of several hundred people can completely sway an election.
Yeah, exactly. As we saw with Gore versus Bush in 2000, when Gore lost by only 537
7
votes.
votes in
Yeah,
Florida.
in Florida. Exactly.
So I think, what do you think about this? I mean, I think one thing that we definitely should be talking about is Ohio is a big player right now,
Sure.
and it's a battleground. People say, these battleground states. I think we should try and maybe find a different word for that, and really truly encourage people to get to those polls and ultimately think about, the whole idea, and Richard Green, why we love him so much, is the whole idea of choose your America. What America do you want to live in? Do you want to live in an America where there's a gigantic, dirty pipeline coming down the center of it, polluting our environments? Do you want a country that's not going to invest in sustainable green jobs? I mean, we will create these jobs, but we have to do it in a very sustainable way. And I think that if you want to live in that America where, maybe women don't have rights that they should, and that we have no green energy infrastructure, that's not an America that I want to live in, and I don't think that's an America that you want to live in.
Exactly. I was just in Ohio yesterday, and I got to visit. The word battleground is exactly what I saw. For every Obama rally that I attended, there was a Romney rally across the street.
Right.
Which looked more like a protest than it did an actual rally for their candidacy. And then also driving from venue to venue, listening to the radio, hearing all the negative ads from the Republican candidate over to Obama, all the negative ads, and on television they're just as awful. I really, I guess, empathized for the Ohioans out there who have to deal with this. I mean, we should find another word for battleground state, because when we call it that, I feel it's become that, and people are almost exhausted and don't want to vote at all anymore. However, there is still a pride on both sides that people want to claim their America.
Right.
And that's a good thing. I like to see that people are revved up about this, but I'm disappointed in the negative ads. And it's certainly from the Romney campaign, who's been going back and forth on a variety of issues. Where years ago, for example, Romney thought it was a great idea to attack and start a war. These days, he's all about peace, and all the lying that he's mentioned about GM moving their automobile industry to China, which was totally bogus. And it goes to show that party will do anything to create the kind of confusion that's needed for people to vote for him. And I only say this because I'm really sad about the conduct and the character of that candidate in Ohio, especially that, and that's from what I saw when I was there yesterday.
Well, the thing, I didn't actually get the chance to travel that much. I would have loved to have gone to Ohio and Pennsylvania and Florida, but because of production schedule, I couldn't. And maybe get on the phone and talk to people. But I will say this: I think that, and let's be really, really honest, this election is close. It is neck and neck, and that is something that we need to understand. And so, if in fact in these battleground states we are seeing that I think people are genuinely confused right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And confusion is scary. It's dangerous. And so I guess maybe you and I and Jahan maybe and whoever comes and joins in, I guess the question we should ask ourselves right now is, what can we do in the next couple of hours, to anyone who's tuning into this? What can we do to maybe help some of this confusion? You know what I'm going to do, actually, Jason? I'm going to have some people maybe tweet some questions.
That's a great idea.
I'll start a hashtag right now, and I'll have some people tweet us some questions, and we'll answer them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's see. Maybe we can do and Jahan can play us a song. Let's I don't know, what would the hashtag be? How about like hashtag Choose Your America?
There you go.
All right, let's do it, man. I'm gonna do it right now. So okay, yeah, let's make that work. Give me 1 second. Isn't this technology amazing that we can do this right now?
It's pretty good. And I was thinking about my technology on my ride out here today, where I'm sitting to use this computer, because where I live, I actually don't have a very high internet speed. So I came into town to use a faster computer, and I started to think about my iPhone. And every couple of years we seem to be up. Heck, every couple of months we're updating them, and every couple of years, if not once a year, people want the faster version.
Right.
And, I still have a relatively old one, but it's still relatively new in the scheme of things. But I haven't updated and bought the new one that everyone's freaking out about. And I began to think about my president, similarly. There's nothing broken about him. There's nothing wrong with it. I want to keep him. I think he's going to be fine for another 4 years. I don't necessarily think that the country could be working faster or more improved if we got him out and put a new model in. Because that new
I couldn't
model,
agree with you more.
it's going to take time to adapt, and plus he's going to be met with resistance. And I would love to see our president have another term, but that's just me. I'm the type of guy that likes to keep something around that's working.
No, I agree, and I think that a lot of people are saying that it's not working. Here's my question. I mean, here's my thought. My thought is how can someone expect a man like President Obama to fix in 4 years what was destroyed in 8 years? That is a very difficult thing
Sure.
for me to grasp, and I can't understand maybe why that sort of school of, why more people aren't subscribing to that school of thought. So, you know what, man, let's ask some people. What is your Twitter handle, brother?
It's Jason_MRAZ.
Okay.
I'm looking up.
MRAZ. All right. I'm just going to ask people to ask us some questions, and
Okay.
whatever they want, whatever's confusing you.
I can see a couple questions already.
Nice. Jahan, where are you, man?
I am at my house.
I know where. What
California.
what state?
California. I mean, that's
You're in California. Where are you, Jason?
I'm also in California. I'm in Southern California right now.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, so I just sent it out, and I guess the good thing is we can just go to. There's some questions. Wow. All right.
All right. How about this one from Teresa? What would your first act as a president? What would your first act as a president be?
Ooh. Wow. Well, that's a. Yeah, can you imagine answering this on the spot like we're doing right now? I would say the first act as a president, as of right this second, I think the one thing that we have to do is that we ultimately, absolutely, positively, right now, have to figure out a way to start to figure out tax-wise how to start investing in this green energy infrastructure that we're talking about, because there are a number of things. One thing is the American public, say diesel, for instance, diesel fuel, takes less refining, should be cheaper, it's more expensive. Why? It's a commercial fuel. They decide, hey, all the big semi-trucks, every company has to use it, let's charge people more for it. But what people don't realize is it actually burns cleaner because the engine's designed to use the fuel. They simply burn cleaner, they get better gas mileage. But in the U.S., people don't promote it. We think of, the old Peugeot or Mercedes with the big black cloud of smoke. That is all gone. And if we were using hybrid technology and developing systems where we're not blowing off the tops of mountains, developing wind and solar fields that we know we can, we would elect to start taking away some of the need for coal and nuclear and all these things. That is something that's really going to bite us in the butt. Look at what happened with Sandy. Imagine if one of those nuclear power plants that is 62 miles from New York City something bad had gone down there, we would be looking at a catastrophe like we did, like in Japan. That is something we can't afford. We
Yeah.
simply can't. It's something immediate. And so I know there's a zillion other things to worry about, but I think that ultimately energy is what's causing us the most problems in life. I don't know. What about you, Jason?
Yeah, I agree. I've actually started a short list. This is so funny that this question came up because I started a short list a couple of weeks ago about what would I do if I was president. And I'm sure I would get tons of hate mail for doing so. I'm with you, man. I agree that energy is a huge first step for us to be able to harness our own energy and develop the technology where we could use diesel fuel, cleaner burning fuel. And with those diesel engines, you can grow your own fuel, your own biofuels, your own ethanols generated out of garbage, out of industrial hemp, out of corn.
Anything. Yeah.
You can grow your own. Imagine going to the gas pump and having a choice when you buy your gas. You can buy gas from Saudi Arabia or Gulf of Mexico or grown in North Dakota. It'd be interesting to see what people actually choose. I would also like to see education reformed. I would love to see teachers paid higher. I would love to see tenure done away with and seeing teachers that actually give a darn in the schools and seeing what charter schools are doing, getting their kids to college. I'd like to see that happening in all the public schools, especially in inner city schools where I've seen they just blame economy on the quality of someone's brain.
I agree.
And so I would love to go in and do that. And you know what? I shouldn't even say this, but this is totally radical. I would take away our right to bear arms. I would make it a privilege, much like having a driver's license. Like anyone can apply, anyone can take the test, much like driving a car, and prove that you're worthy of owning one. But to say that we have a right, and for that anyone to have it, we have an uncontrollable amount of suicides and accidental deaths and gun violence and crime rates through the roof. But that's an aside. That's humanities. I would start with energy and education, my friend.
Energy and I couldn't agree with you more. Energy and education. See, at least we agree on something, Jason.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome. All right, let's see. I'm from Mexico, and I leave.
I see one here. It says, I teach at a community college, and my 18 and 19-year-old students don't feel that this election is relevant to them. This comes from @PilgrimSoul on Twitter. And, I like to let young people know what the incentive was in voting on this election were the Pell Grants, so the expansion of Pell Grants and student loans, which in the last 4 years Obama expanded and made Pell Grants available to young people. I have a friend that's an undergraduate at Columbia, and if Romney is going to take away student loans, for instance, is what he said he would probably knock out to save some money, and let students rely on their parents to help them out where they need it. Well, my friend at Columbia doesn't have the parents to help her get through college, and so without the student loans, she can't go to school, and then she's left then with the debt she's already accumulated from starting school. And so when I look at someone who's 18, 19, whether or not they're going to college or want to go to college later, that having a loan available to you is amazing. Having the government there to help you go to college and get the education you want, I think is super huge.
It is huge. I agree with you. The one thing I think that the Romney camp is saying, which they're skewing this information, is that, yes, education, we need it to bump up, beyond a shadow of a doubt. But I think what Romney's touting is that when those people get out of college, they ultimately can't find jobs because this economy has tanked so much, which there are so many components that attributed to us getting to this place. The types of deregulation we were seeing. I mean, all of these things that got us to this place. And so I agree with you, and I think you're right. And I think that the one thing, so if someone's asking, if she's saying, hey, listen, my 18-year-old students don't think that this election is relevant, we can assure you this election is the most relevant. It is quite possibly, other than Roosevelt, the most pivotal election in American history. I know that sounds somewhat melodramatic. I think you might agree. This is literally that this is literally the severity, and I know that's an odd word to use, but that is how serious this election is. And so if we, no, not if, when we get President Obama back in office, we will put a hammer to him to create these jobs and offer up ideas and let, the public and the private corporation sector of the country start developing. I myself, luckily, have been very lucky to develop and own a green energy company that works like a charm, man. It is bizarre what we're doing with our company. And I know for a fact, we can provide so many jobs and so much green energy that it's incredible. And we don't need government. We don't need government tax incentives. We can build our own factories, our own ways of manufacturing, but we can provide all these incredible jobs, and we can cut carbon footprints. These are the things that we need to be offering up to President Obama and his administration. So, please, guys, and I hope that anyone who's listening to this and to me and Jason, this is, I promise you, the most pivotal election of our time, I think. And so please get out there. I am literally begging you. If I could get on my hands and knees right now, I would. Is that Richard Green? I see Richard Green.
Yeah, I see him as well. He looks a little frozen, and I don't hear his voice. I had him writing his questions earlier so we could hear him. But for those of just tuning in, I'm here. Jason Mraz is here with Ian Somerhalder, and we're just talking about this election and how pivotal it is, how it's probably the most important election of our age. The polls are open tomorrow, November 6th, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. in most states. I know Virginia, for example, opens at 6 a.m. So it's going to be an exciting time. If you've ever called in and voted for your favorite American Idol person, this is going to be like that times 1,000. It's going to be... Yes. The effects to follow are going to change the world. One of the things that I think it's important to vote in this election is about a year ago, or maybe less than, President Obama went on national TV and said that he thought it was okay for same-sex couples to be able to get married. And that was the first time a president had ever said that. And I've got so many friends in the LGBT community who have been waiting their whole lives to have not just those tax breaks and not just to have the benefits of taking your loved one to the hospital and being able to share what ordinary couples get to do in a hospital, being in close quarters, but just to be accepted socially. Just so that there's less bullying about gay or straight or this or that, the other. The fact that if it was legalized, if love was truly legalized, there'd be less bullying and less slurs in the field of homosexuality. So that's another reason why I'm casting a vote for President Obama, because I'd really like to see what happens in another 4 years on that topic.
I agree. I think it's the strangest thing. It's the strangest thing to, honestly, I think, to tell two people that are in love that they are unable to be together. That is, it doesn't quite compute, it seems like, in our minds. So I think the president, I think he will take a much harder standing in developing the understanding around the country that this should be able to happen. So I agree with you, and a lot of my friends are just itching to be able to sort of show their love for each other. And another thing is too, again, and it all goes back to, and not to sound like a bleeding heart artist, it all goes back to a system of compassion, which if you have, and it's not something you can teach, it's something that you can show and something that you can experience. I don't think that you can teach it, and I think a more compassionate USA is effectively going to be a more efficient and by comparison a much more not loving but progressive country. And progress is, listen, you have to believe in the future. We absolutely create we control the future because we're creating it. That's what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And that's another reason why that I think we're all casting our vote for President Obama and why it is so incredibly important.
On a similar topic, I was reading about Abraham Lincoln because the movie's coming out next week,
Mm-hmm.
and he lost a Senate race, I believe, in 1856, and his opponent was on the was for the slave interest. His opponent wanted to make sure that slavery, continued because it was good for business at the time. But Lincoln knew better than that. Lincoln knew that, we could distribute wealth and opportunity to everyone, every human being in these United States, and he fought for it, and he abolished slavery. And today, Barack Obama and Michelle Obama live in the White House. And I think that's extraordinary, what 150 years later looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows what 100 years from now looks like, keeping Barack in office and allowing same-sex marriages to be legal. And
that's interesting. That's an interesting thought.
There could be a 15-year-old out there right now, openly gay, who has dreams of being a president. And maybe there's a possibility, that dream could come true for that young man thanks to the actions taken today by Barack Obama.
Or a young woman. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
There's a couple of things. I agree with you. One of them is this whole bullying thing that's happening. I actually talked to the president about this, oddly enough, at a breakfast that I had with him. Not personally, there was a group of us, a small group. And a lot of stuff that we're doing at my foundation, the Ian Somerhalder Foundation, bullying, it seems to me, and I could be wrong, that we can't progress as a people, as a civilization, as a human race, or as a country. If we're losing kids because maybe they're a little overweight, or their hair color's different, or I don't know, they have one foot, whatever it may be. This child, this young person who takes their own life because of a lack of compassion of their peers, we don't know who this kid is. Not only are they a daughter or a son or a brother or a cousin or a friend, this child could have been the person to be the next Barack Obama. This person could have been the person who developed the formula for cold fusion and changed the energy infrastructure of the entire world. We have no idea who these kids are. And so someone taking their own life is a tragedy, and it's unnecessary. So again, it goes back to compassion. And I think one thought, too, as well, is I think what we have to always also remember, as I think that the other side is saying, is that it's all about job creation. There is an economics to it. We have to create that economics. It's the same thing in conservation. International conservation, whether it's species or habitat, is truly affects us here. And you have to develop the economics of conservation, the economics of sound politics and of sound energy policy and foreign policy, all of it. So I think that that's the one thing that we also have to remember to include in these talks of moving forward with green energy and getting off of this sort of, dependency on foreign oil. Also, gay marriage or any number of these topics. We also have to remember that in order for this to work, to help people understand that this is the right choice, is that we have to have sound economics to back it up, which I know that we will. And I think you're right. I think that if President Obama is not in office the next 4 years, there's going to be such a restructuring, and it's going to be, I'm sorry, quite frankly, a nightmare. It's going to be a nightmare. And that's not the choose your America I think that we want. Do you see any questions?
Yeah, I got another one here from Tina Johnson. Her Twitter handle is at 10win4368. She says, what do you think about Obama's health care? Is it a positive or a negative?
That's a bit of a doozy, to be honest with you. It is a doozy. I mean, healthcare, this is such a complex subject. And the problem is that, I don't know about you guys, but having a healthcare system that is a massive for-profit system doesn't make any sense. How is it possible that people get sick in this country and they lose their homes? Their children don't go to college. Whereas right above us, up north, someone gets really sick and they're taken care of. Across the pond in the UK, you get sick, you're taken care of. I have friends of mine who are from England who need massive surgeries. And rather than use their insurance here, which is going to cost them a fortune, they go home because it's their right to have it, and they've paid for it. And I think that that is such an important, going into this election, I think, again, a lot of confusion. I think it's even, to be honest with you, it's a subject, I'll be completely honest, that I'm confused about because I don't understand the ins and outs of it. But I do know that what President Obama is fighting for is that if you live in this country, you should have health care. And I don't think that health care reform is truly called health care reform. It needs to be called insurance reform. You know what I mean?
I do, yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of the concerns that I've seen are that thanks to now that there's the Affordable Health Care Act, that people's taxes are going to go up, and that taxes are going to be what's paid for. And in Canada, in the UK, in Denmark, all across the world, there's many countries, I guess socialist nations, that have super high tax rates. They'll pay anywhere from 45, 65, 75%. I think in Norway they pay up to 75% tax. But the government takes care of you. And so I think there is a way to reform insurance, reform the health care, and I think the Affordable Health Care Act is a start. I think it's amazing that Obama managed to break through all of that big business that is health care and figure out a way to help more Americans get the health care that they deserve. I personally feel that a nation is only as great as its healthy citizens. You know, and if, like you said, if we get sick and we have to lose our homes or our jobs or our kids can't go to school,
how does that help us?
How does that help us? That company loses a great worker, and you know it's not good for the economy.
No, I agree. You know, I wish, man, I wish we could listen and hear Richard, because this is a man who is so proficient. I mean,
he's so eloquent.
He is so eloquent, and not only is he a prolific writer and an eloquent speaker, he has such insight to these things that we're talking about. And Richard,
can you guys hear me?
Oh, there you are.
I just thought I'd be silent and let you say nice things about me.
Well, come on.
It worked. The strategy worked.
Everyone, really quickly, I think Jason and I should. This man, Richard Green, this is the man who conceptualized this Choose Your America phenomenon that we're all talking about, and the fact that we're all here. So I think we should give this man a little bit of a round of applause. So hopefully everyone else is applauding with us.
Okay, thank you. Listen, you guys, first of all, let's just check the audio. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can. Well, that'd be such a great slogan. We should think about that, suggest it to the president. Before we have another technical glitch, I just want to tell you how honored I am to be on with two people who I consider my heroes, and I mentioned that in an email to you guys before. You're about 20 years younger than I am. I'm still a baby boomer. You guys are the millennial generation, and it's so appropriate that with your millions and millions of fans, that it could be you talking together that can actually make a difference. One of the things that inspired me to create the Choose Your America campaign was because I am still traumatized by what happened in the year 2000, when Al Gore was running against George Bush. And 537 people in the state of Florida changed the direction of this country. There's no question that we would not have been involved in the Iraq War had it been for those 537 people voting a different way. And many people even believe 9/11 wouldn't have happened, and that the stock market wouldn't have crashed, and that the economy wouldn't have crashed. In other words, we went through 8 years in, I think, not just my opinion, but many historians, presidential historians' opinions, the worst presidency in the history of the United States. Now, I'm sure George Bush is a nice guy, but I don't think that he helped us in any way, shape, or form on the environment, on gay rights, on international relations, on anything. And we have a chance, in my opinion, to choose our America tomorrow. And
Yeah.
it's not just a question of Obama versus Mitt Romney, although that's very, very close. And I want to go through the 10 reasons why I think that it impacts every one of our lives almost as big a difference as between George Bush and Al Gore or John Kerry. But I really want to encourage people to take a look at the two other branches of government. I was a political science major, and I actually got into politics.
Yeah, actually, really quickly, let me just remind everybody. Actually, what he's about to talk about is incredibly important and really inspiring, and actually insanely informative. So I just want everyone to know that, because when I speak to Richard about this is when I get truly informed. So please go ahead, Richard.
Well, you're very kind. Here's the thing: we have, and people don't understand it because they're living their lives and they're doing whatever they're doing. But I actually love politics, and I've been in it guys. I've been in it since I walked literally door to door for an assembly candidate when I was 14 years old. And I love politics, and the reason that I love it is because I really feel that it's one of the quickest, most profound, and easiest ways to shift everything. Everything. If we look at the great inspirational political leaders, look at Franklin Roosevelt, what he did, the only thing to fear is fear itself. He literally, through the force of his own vision and personality, the country out of the Great Depression and through World War II. And John F. Kennedy, that ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. I was alive then. I was 9 years old when John F. Kennedy was killed. I remember class being stopped. Everyone, we have to go into the multi-purpose room, and there's been a big event, and it just transformed the world when John F. Kennedy died. But that energy that he, one individual, brought of hope and change in the early 60s, and again, I was alive then, was extraordinary. And him saying, we're going to go to the moon, and we made it to the moon during the decade. So that degree of vision is extraordinary. It cannot happen with one branch of government, and this is what you were alluding to, Ian. There are three co-equal branches of government in the United States, and that's part of the magic of the Constitution. And people say, oh, Obama doesn't believe in the Constitution, Democrats don't believe in the Constitution. That's not true. The Constitution says that there is an executive branch, a legislative branch, and a judicial branch. And what has happened for the last 4 years is that within the legislative branch, which is Congress, made of the House of Representatives, 435 people, and the Senate, 100 people, is that anything that President Obama has wanted to get done, including Obamacare, to have alternative energy, to have gay rights, and have, gay same-sex marriage, and to support that, although that is mainly a state issue, and to move the country forward economically with even more incentives. There are many economists who say that when there is a recession, you want to have the government come in and put in a lot of money as stimulus. And when things are going well, you want the government to be able to pull back because the private enterprise is taking care of that. But so we would have had many more jobs, and there would have been many more such. For example, there was a bill that said that we're going to give tax breaks to companies that take jobs from other countries and bring them back to the United States. In other words, insource rather than outsource. And at the same time, this bill said we're going to give tax credits to those people, and we're going to add taxes. We're going to tax companies that outsource jobs, right? Seemed like a really logical thing, right? Because we want to have more jobs here in the United States. Guess what happened to that bill?
Congress shut it down.
Mitch McConnell, the minority leader of the United States Senate, who is in charge of the Republicans, said, no, you know what? Obama will get too much credit for that. That might actually help. And Mitch McConnell literally said, and so they shut it down. Mitch McConnell literally said about 1.5 years ago that his number one job was not to help America, not to help Americans who were out of work, not to help the environment. His number one job. What?
Sorry, to make President Obama a one-term president.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mitch McConnell has been the most important, most powerful man in the country. So there have been approximately 100 bills that have been filibustered by the United States Senate. Even when Nancy Pelosi was Speaker of the House of Representatives, and they passed all these fantastic things about clean energy and promoting employment and infrastructure, building bridges and roads and all of that, it'd be shut down in the United States Senate because we didn't have 60 Democrats who would vote to override the filibuster, to invoke cloture, in other words, close down the filibuster. So how that relates to tomorrow is that in order for us to truly have the hope and change that everybody was counting on in 2008 when we elected Barack Obama, we need to have a Democratic Congress. And what that means is every single Democrat, there's 33 Senate elections. And in every one of them, of course, there's a Democrat and a Republican. And I'm suggesting that people take a look at the party brands. What is it that the Democratic Party stands for? What is it that the Republican Party stands for? And only by having more Democrats are you going to have more of President Obama's agenda if he gets reelected. And what's really scary is if Republicans win the Senate, then Mitch McConnell, whose number one job has been to ensure that President Obama was a one-term president and to stop all of the clean energy and gay rights and all of the things that we've been and helping kids with their tuition, all of these things, he would be the leader of the United States Senate. He could block Supreme Court nominees, he could block anything and everything, and we would have 2 or 4 more years of gridlock. And that brings me to the last thing in this little civics lesson. I'm sorry I'm taking so much time on it.
No, I love it.
It's important, is that the Supreme Court, Lawrence O'Donnell of MSNBC and a bunch of other people are saying that the number one issue in this election tomorrow is not President Obama. It's not even the House of Representatives. It's not even the United States Senate. It's actually the Supreme Court. We have 4 Supreme Court justices who are in their 70s. Ruth Bader Ginsburg has already answered. She's 79. She's going to be 80 early next year. We've got Anthony Kennedy. We've got Stephen Breyer. We have Antonin Scalia. One of them is super conservative. The other 3 are, one is moderate and 2 are liberal. If Ruth Bader Ginsburg, for example, were to die or retire during the next 4 years, and Mitt Romney were the president, he has already said that he will nominate a justice that will try to put an end to, that will overturn Roe v. Wade. So if that's the case, that means he'd nominate a justice that's in his 40s or early 50s, who could be on the United States Supreme Court for 30 or 40 years, and there would be a majority of anti-gay rights, anti-women's rights, anti-environmental rights, a 5-4 majority on the Supreme Court. Now, that's not something that we can change in 4 years. These justices are on for life. And so I just want people to pay attention to all of these other factors, because it's not just the simple issues that are being bandied about back and forth on these television hit pieces. And so I created Choose Your America because I believe, you know what, even though obviously I'm a Democrat, I ran for Congress actually on the Green Party. I've worked with Democrats. I support President Obama. I was a big supporter of his early on. I just want them to be informed. And I want them to know that we're talking about tomorrow 2 completely different Americas. And what I'd like to do really briefly is go through the 10 reasons, the 10 differences. Real simple. Number 1, and I love what you guys were talking about, and I agree with all of that. Number 1, I just did a PSA and an interview with Bill Nye, the science guy. Bill Nye is frantic, and the whole thing about Superstorm and Hurricane Sandy is confirmation to him and most scientists that, climate change is not causing these storms, but it's making them worse. And there's only one party that is in favor of limiting our carbon emissions, and that is the Democratic Party. There was a bill that the Republicans put forth to stop the Environmental Protection Agency from controlling carbon emissions, because they don't believe, the Republican Party doesn't believe in climate change. And if they believe in it, it's because it's these natural cycles, and it has nothing to do with burning coal, burning natural gas, burning oil. And so almost 100%, actually 100% of the Republicans in the Congress voted to prevent the EPA from controlling carbon emissions. At the same time, 100% of the Republicans in Congress, it gets worse, 100% of the Republicans in Congress voted to give oil companies $4 billion in subsidies yet another year. They are the wealthiest corporations in the world. It's the wealthiest industry in the world, and we are giving $4 billion in subsidies to them when they don't need the money, and denying, the Republicans are trying to deny every single penny in subsidies to solar companies, to wind companies, to biomass companies, to industrial hemp, which is a fantastic biomass material, to tidal energy, to micro hydro, where you put little micro generators in rivers where you don't have to build dams. I totally agree with you, Jason, and with you, Ian, that we can create our own energy, but the Republicans, and I hate to be so black and white, but it's just black and white. The Republicans do not want alternative energy. They want to bring the Keystone Pipeline down from Canada, and people will go, well, yeah, that'll bring jobs, but what it also brings is this tar sand, which when you burn it, emits 3 times the carbon emissions of regular oil. We can't afford that. Bill Nye said we only have a couple of years, and beyond that, we've reached the point of no return, and 350.org has been saying that for years. Jason, looks like you want to say something on that.
Well, you know, I ran into Bill Nye maybe about a year ago, and he said it would take 7 Earths for us to truly live the way we live today, to have enough resources for what we want to do. 7 Earths, and we don't have 7 Earths. We have 1 Earth. And so I think we should carry on through your top 10 list and hear what some of the other reasons are.
You know, again, people say, oh, you know, you're being biased. I'm not. I just want people to understand the difference. If you believe, and I'm talking to your fans, if you believe that coal and oil and nuclear and natural gas is the way to go, and that we should shut down any development of the truly renewable, sustainable alternative, let's work with the earth instead of suck stuff out of it, then you should vote for Mitt Romney. You really should. And you should vote for every Republican you can. But if you believe that the only way we're going to do this and create the energy so we don't need to go find 6 other Earths is to create alternative energy, Barack Obama is the greenest president we've ever had. He's even greener than Bill Clinton. He totally gets it. Harry Reid, the Senate Majority Leader, who is a Democrat, he's totally into developing green energy. Nancy Pelosi, the former Speaker, is totally into developing green energy. But the Republicans, and I don't completely understand it, they're not. I think one of the reasons, however, is the second reason to vote for Barack Obama and the Democrats, and that is campaign finance reform. How many of you out there would like to see less money saturating the political process? Because money in politics is the root of evil in politics. Money's a great thing. But when you have congressmen and senators literally driving around with like little tin cups going, please, 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 and how many of you have gotten an email saying, hey, just 24 hours till this new fundraising deadline, we need to raise more money? There has been about $1 billion raised and spent by both sides. Bill Nelson is a friend of mine. He's running for Senate in Florida. Please vote for him. You know, has had to raise like $30 million just to keep a seat. Let's just break that down. Here it is. You're representing the state of Florida, and because you have to buy all of these campaign commercials to benefit NBC and CBS and ABC and Fox and all of that, you've got to raise $30 million. Let's say you start the day after you're elected, and you have 6 years. What's 6 into 30?
5.
5.
5, right? Okay. So that's $5 million a year, which breaks out to almost what? Half a $1,000,000 every month. Which let's say it's like, so let's say it's like $400,000 a month that you have to raise every month for the 6 years that you're in. That's $100,000 a week. So his part-time job
That is incredible.
His part-time job is representing the state of Florida. His full-time job is raising $100,000 a week.
Wow.
I think it's obscene. I even think it's obscene that Barack Obama has to take Air Force One and fly here to Los Angeles to go do fundraising things and sit down with Jeffrey Katzenberg and Steven Spielberg and all of that. And Jason, you've helped, you played with these things, but I think it's obscene. Why should he be a prostitute and have to pimp himself out and say, hey, because ultimately when people are paying money, they get access. When they have access, they get special rights to promote their special interests. And the special interests tend to be not the people's interests. So why am I mentioning this as a difference? It's a difference because only one of the two parties wants to end this system. There was a Supreme Court opinion called Citizens United, right, which just came out and said that people can spend as much as they want, corporations can spend as much as they want, trade unions can spend as much as they want, and that's why you see so many of these ads that are put on by people under the free speech rights. But the problem is, it's all then about money. It's all about salesmanship. And there is a great senator, his name is Dick Durbin. He's the senior senator from Illinois. He's the Senate, the second in command to Harry Reid. He came out years ago with a bill, it's called the Fair Elections Now Act. And what this bill says is that we're going to let the public finance campaigns. We're not going to have these individual special interests and rich billionaires and whatever fund campaign. We're going to have the public do it. And that way we take that all off the table. Bill Nelson doesn't have to run around raising $30 million in 6 years. The presidents don't, the congressional candidates don't. Guess how many Republicans are supporting that?
All of them.
Zero.
Oh, zero. I'm sorry, I had it backwards. Zero.
We'll try it again. Guess how many are not supporting them? All of them, right?
100%, yeah.
Right. So the only sponsors on Dick Durbin's bill in the Senate and a corollary bill in the House to take money out of politics are Democrats. And I have people, I even had Tim Robbins, the actor, he went to Tim, so are you going to be involved in this campaign? He goes, no, Richard, I'm sick of both parties. They're all the same. They all take corporate money. Well, they do all take corporate money, but the difference is that one party, the Democrats, wants to end that system where they have to take corporate money, and the other party is saying, no, let's bring it on, more money. Okay, so that's reason number two. So the future of planet Earth, climate change, I think that's a good reason to vote Democrats for the Senate, for the House, and obviously for the White House. Campaign finance reform, taking money out, a huge reason. That's number two. Reason number three, hello, 52% of the population, the people that Ian wants to hug along with trees. It was so cute when you did that little hangout with your fans about the debate. And you said, I love women, I love trees. And why? Because like, you want to put your arms around both of them.
Yeah, why not?
I think that there is a fundamental difference in the attitudes that Republicans have about women and their rights for their own body and Democrats. And you guys know this guy Todd Akin in Missouri. He's running for Senate in Missouri against Claire McCaskill. Wow. He actually used the term, Ian, remember what he said?
Not about that rate. No, what refresh me?
Right. He actually was talking about how when a woman is legitimately raped.
Oh, legitimately raped. It's just
he literally used the term that if a woman is legitimately raped, her body biologically is going to somehow cause herself not to be pregnant.
Not to be fertile.
Yeah. I didn't learn that in biology class, did you?
No. And the term itself, the legitimate rape aspect of it is...
Right, and so here's the deal. It used to be, when I was about your age, it used to be that Republicans and Democrats were much closer. There were a lot of moderate Democrats and a lot of moderate Republicans. What has happened in the last years since George Bush, Dick Cheney came in, the religious right, and I totally respect if you believe that abortion is sinful, I totally appreciate that. Again, the whole thing about this campaign is let's just lay it out. If you believe that abortion absolutely should be illegal and that Roe v. Wade should be overturned, you should absolutely vote for Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan and every Republican. You should, and that's your right. And if that's what the majority in this country says, so be it. It's fantastic. That's what democracy is all about. But I just want everyone to know that I was alive when abortions were illegal. They became legal in 1973 because a majority of the Supreme Court in 1973, in this case called Roe v. Wade, said, you know what, it is the woman's constitutional right of privacy over her own body to be able to make this choice. Very controversial. Then we study, I'm a lawyer, we studied this a lot in law school about how that happened. Mitt Romney wants to overturn Roe v. Wade. Paul Ryan wants to overturn Roe v. Wade. Mitch McConnell wants to overturn Roe v. Wade.
And why is this? Why is that, Richard?
Because they believe from their fundamentalist Christian perspective, and I totally acknowledge it and honor it, they believe that a life starts at conception. And that's fantastic. I really bow to their religious beliefs. But what that means is if life, in their idea, if life starts at conception, then if you do an abortion, even on the second day or the first day after you become pregnant, it's murder. They really believe that, and I don't believe that. I personally believe that life begins when the fetus is viable, and that's pretty much what Roe v. Wade says. I personally don't believe in late-term abortions.
No, I don't think very many people. I don't think very many people do. They don't. I mean, the majority of people don't, and the ones that we've seen are horrific. And I don't think this election is about third trimester, late pregnancy abortions. I think it's the idea that by virtue of the fact that if in fact this happens, you're going to have young women going into, to be brash and quote unquote back alley abortions.
Well, it's true.
Is gonna be a disaster. I don't know, Jason. What do you think?
Yeah, and if that should happen and they were caught, I would assume they'd be arrested, which would only add more trouble. Because you imagine a young woman who, say, was raped and felt it was important to her to have an abortion, and then was arrested on that, and then her life ruined. Exactly, and then put in jail after already being what she's been through. I think it's just awful. So I think that situation should be left the way it is, a woman's right to privacy, a woman's right to choose. And
right, and there's only one. If you agree with Jason, fans, if you agree with Jason, you have to vote for Barack Obama, because Mitt Romney absolutely will do everything he can to do two things. Number one is to not really protect the right of abortion clinics to exist, even while Roe v. Wade still exists. But he will appoint justices, and could even in 4 years, because we have 4 justices that are in their 70s, he could appoint 1, 2, or even 3 justices, and that would be a very strong and very long-term majority to deny free choice, to deny the right for women to have that kind of choice in America. And I was alive when back alley abortions were happening. And there would be 15, 16, 18-year-old girls who couldn't share it with their mother or father what was going on. There were no abortion clinics. They didn't have the time or the money to go to Mexico, to go outside the United States, or go someplace or to Europe. So they would say, wow, you know what, I got to get rid of this. I can't even disclose. My parents are going to be so upset if they even know I'm pregnant. And they go and they would do these very unsanitary, literally coat hanger abortions, and oftentimes they die or they get very sick. It just doesn't make sense in the 21st century that we would return to something like that. Right. But there's another, and so I promise you that if Mitt Romney is president, there is a very, very strong chance that Roe v. Wade will be overturned and that abortions will be illegal in many states in this country. They won't be illegal in California or New York, but they will be illegal in the places where they have a much more conservative philosophy. The other part of the women's issue, the third reason why I think, personally, I'd like to see people vote for Democratic senators and congressmen and president, is equal pay. The very first bill that President Obama signed was called the Lilly Ledbetter Act. And basically it cleared the way. There were all these challenges to what a woman could do if she wasn't being paid equal pay for equal work, and it cleared those legal challenges. Almost every Republican voted against it, and every Democrat voted for it. So yet another difference. Okay, anything else on that? I mean, I just think that this is a question of what kind of, do we want an enlightened planet here? Do we want an enlightened country? Or do we want to go back to treating women as second-class citizens?
Yeah.
Ian, Jason?
Jason, go ahead if you had some thoughts. I mean, I definitely do.
Well, man, I'm equality for all, and that includes women being treated fairly, given the same opportunities that men have in the workplace. It's 2012, man, and I feel like so many of these issues that are being brought up, or that we're almost going to be that we're still deciding on, is things that should have been cleared up in the 90s or even before then. Like you said, Roe v. Wade was in the 70s. How is it still coming up 40 years later? So I think we're super close in another 4 years to seeing a woman president. We are, and if anybody out there wants to ever see that, this is a great election to be a part of, in seeing that women get treated the same, equal pay, the same opportunities, so that young women can aspire to hold great positions in leadership.
I agree. I mean, I absolutely agree. That's, there's an interesting sort of a few statistics I think we're all somewhat aware of, and speaking that there's a few of us boys and a lovely lady. If you look at statistically, coming out of universities right now, there are more educated women than there are men. Women are exceeding men in education at this point, yet the pay scale doesn't justify it. And you have a lot of single families at this point, because it's the 21st century, and women are having children out of wedlock by virtue of the fact that maybe they had a significant someone and that went away, or they they wanted to have a child on their own. But their education level is the same, if not higher, and the pay scale isn't the same. I personally think that's going to change very soon, and I think it will change in the next 4 years with President Barack Obama in office. Because President Obama doesn't need a binder of women to make this work. But another thing is that I think, again, Richard, what did you say the percentages of men and women in this country? Basically, I'm sure it's about half and half, right?
Well, I think there's always slightly more women. It's like 51, 52%. But they're clearly the superior part of the species, no matter how many they are.
So half of this country are women, and if you're going to a polling place tomorrow, and you are a woman, and 51% or 52% of the country is the same sex as you are, and you're thinking to yourself, well, in a couple of months, I may be told what I can and can't do with my body, and the pay scales in this country are not going to change at all. And I think, is that, again, choose your America. Is that an America that you ultimately want to live in? And I could say it would probably, I would imagine, be the idea that you want to be able to do whatever you want with your body within reason, and be able to have the ability to make equal pay scale as men. And again, here's the other thing. Women are, and because we love them, but I'm noticing, one of the things ISF works on is women's empowerment. When there is an empowered, educated woman in the household or around, efficiency goes up. It's a statistical fact. And I think that empowering young women, especially predominantly in the youth world where I tend to live, is pretty incredible. And watching these young ladies, these young women that ISF is involved with and that I see just from the fan base of the Vampire Diaries as well.
Ian, tell people what ISF is if they don't know.
Oh yeah, well some people would. It's the Ian Somerhalder Foundation, and a very large component of the Ian Somerhalder Foundation is women's empowerment, and not just in this country, but globally. Because I think ultimately, what we've seen and what we understand is that when you have an empowered, educated woman, whether it's in a group, a community group, a household, governmental body, whatever it is, there is a lot more progression than if it was just men. It is a statistical fact, and so I think that educating and empowering our women, whether in the youth or in an older demographics, is absolutely critical to the survival and the progression of this country and obviously of the world, especially in our foreign relations as well, but domestically, obviously.
And Jason, I know you need to leave in a few minutes.
Yeah, I gotta get. I'm so grateful I got to use an office of Deepak Chopra today to be on the phone with you guys. And unfortunately, it's time for this office to close, so I'm going to step out. But I encourage anyone who's watching this to continue to listen to the points that Richard's making about Choose Your America. I believe you have about 5 or 6 more points to make, Richard, that will help us choose the America that you want. I've learned a great deal from Richard, and Ian, it's been a pleasure to talk to you today, man.
Jason, it's been such a pleasure, man. I look forward to hanging out when I'm back in Southern California, and Deepak is my brother, my cosmic brother, and a mentor of mine, and one of the reasons that I'm having the ability to talk to you today. So
that's great.
I'm sure he's in New York, but if you do see him or any of his staff, will you please give them my absolute love?
I certainly will, and maybe someday we can put those surfboards to use together.
Let's do it, man. I would love that. Invite me to a show at some point.
Okay, I certainly will.
All right, brother. Safe day, man.
And Jason, thank you so much for what you've done. I mean, playing those 3 gigs yesterday in Ohio for Joe Biden, and your incredible leadership amongst your fans to get them involved in thinking and feeling and doing the right things so we can make this a better planet for everyone. So stay in touch, and I will continue with this. I think that the major point is there is a huge difference between the parties, not just in the White House, but in Congress. And if we just someone mentioned something on Facebook saying, I'm freaked out to the idea of having some man or men, tell me what to do with my body. I mean, you're right, and she's 16 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we should leave those decisions to elected officials.
Well, before you leave, I think the one thing I think we should really ask ourselves is, why is it that non-medically trained middle-aged men are making the decisions for what women's bodies should go through and women's health care, what it should be? That's what I don't understand. Closing down Planned Parenthood, it's not just about abortions. It's about STD screenings, education, cervical and ovarian cancer, and cysts and issues. It's an entire group of problems that Planned Parenthood represents and takes care of. And I'm sorry to say, and again, I hate to sound so black and white like you were saying, Richard, because it is so polarized at this point, which is a shame. But Mitt Romney will shut this down. This will go away.
He has said that. It's not just an assumption.
No, it is. He said it. It is literally gone from his brain out of his mouth and into a microphone. And I think as a woman, whether you're 14 or you're 40, that is something that you should not stand for. You should not stand for that. It's not just about abortion. That's what's so sad, is that it is sort of clumped into it. It's like a software bundle. When you buy your computer, you have all this software that you need, and some of it you don't. But the problem is that if you get rid of the entire bundle, then your machine's not going to work. And I know that's a silly silly analogy, but it's the only thing that could kind of come to mind.
I'm going to add something light to this comment as well. When I was in college, I would go to Planned Parenthood to get free condoms when I was in college.
Exactly.
Don't shut that system down.
No.
There would be so many more little Jason Mrazes around, though, if that not happened.
Actually, I wasn't that lucky, Richard. I wasn't. So.
Really? Okay. Now you got to stay and tell us stories about what kind of a stud you were.
Oh,
well, now being a rock star, it's got to be invariably difficult, Jason.
No, man, I'm a family man now.
Yeah, that's a great thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, listen,
All right.
you go. Take
Okay.
care, Jason. Love
And
you very much.
and anyone who's watching, please, I invite you to stay on as long as you can and listen to some of these points that these guys are going to be talking about. It will move you and help you make your decision when you choose your America.
Jason, thank you, man.
Jason Mraz in the
Thank
house.
you.
Jason Mraz.
Thank you, guys.
And Jason, there's a special gift for you as you are leaving the center. Make sure that you redeem it.
I love that. I love that center that Deepak has. It's
Are
amazing.
you there?
I think Jason took off.
Yeah.
Hey,
He
Richard,
did.
I have.
Go ahead.
What's that?
What were you going to say?
No, I was just saying. So you were. I think you were on probably number 3, or maybe
Right.
number 4 of this.
Can you ask your fans, Ian, to kind of either tweet out or put on Facebook or send emails or whatever, and see if they can get some other people, especially if they know people in Pennsylvania and Florida and Ohio and some of the swing states, and even if they're outside of the United States, if they can say, hey, this is a rare opportunity to see one of America's finest and most popular actors actually doing what most actors, I think, are equipped to do, which is to speak intelligently about things outside of acting. And you are so incredibly well versed and so passionate about this stuff. And of course, tomorrow is the final exam for us. Are we going to pass or not? Are we going to elect the right person based upon our own values? And you're incredibly helpful. And so I would encourage people to do that. And even though you're not wearing the tank top that you were wearing last time, I think
I'm in Damon wardrobe. I even have my Vampire Diaries ring on right now. I'm literally sitting I'm sending this tweet right now, but I'm literally sitting in my office. Jason was asking me if I get into if I'm able to get into the water often with surfboards. He didn't know I was in Atlanta. I realized those are actually Teen Choice Awards that sit on my wall. But
you'll have to come out and there is water out here in Southern California, and we can all surf together.
There is absolutely.
So go back. Well, let's just go through it, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish. I wrote this as an article for you, Ian, and also for Jason and my friends at Maroon 5 and some other people to send out, and I'm going to finish it, tonight, and I'll send it out so that people can read it. It's because it's so hard. It's so hard to understand what really is going on. People, you look and you say, oh, all politicians are the same, the Democrats and Republicans, and Obama's this, and he's a Muslim, he's a communist, and Romney's a Mormon, and he's a bit. The truth is, I think Mitt Romney's a good guy. I think he's doing the best he can, to help the America that he sees to be the America that he wants. And it's just not my America. And clearly from the conversation that you were having with Jason, it doesn't seem to be your America. And let me just recap the reasons that people are coming through. Number one, I really, really, really do believe, as Bill Nye, the science guy, believes, that only one party is serious about taking on climate change. And I think climate change is an existential threat to the planet. And I think what happened with Sandy was just an opening act. It was a preview of things to come. And that's what many scientists, including Bill Nye, believe. Number two, and I think we should move away from oil, and we should move to renewable energy so that we don't create more climate change and warm up the planets and the ocean, the planet and the ocean even more. We're talking about the role of women in America. I think that's incredibly important that women are empowered. The answer to your question, this is such an interesting conversation, I think goes to one simple fact, and that is religion. Religion, religion, religion.
I agree.
The people who tend to be the most religious, the fundamentalist Christians, and some others tend to believe that abortion is immoral, and because it is the murder of a living being, right? Just like you and I, if we saw a baby that was just born, and the doctor came in and said, oh, ma'am, you don't want that? Okay, and then they killed it, we would find that to be horrific, right?
Right.
Right? So the Christians who I think in their heart, in a good faith way, believe that abortion is murder have the same feeling about killing a 3-week-old or a 3-month-old fetus. I don't share that. As I said, that's not my definition, but I really do have great respect for people who have that. But it really does come down to religion. If you, based on your religious beliefs, believe that it is murder, you're not going to let a 16-year-old have dominion over her own body to commit a murder, right? So, again, it's just a choice. And I think that today more women believe that, you know, up to a certain point at least, they should have the right to decide whether they're going to be a mother and have that incredible response. I have a 26-year-old daughter. To be a parent is the biggest responsibility on the planet, emotionally, financially, intellectually, and every other way. And I think you should be ready to do that. And I don't think you should even have to go through the whole, you know, 9 months of pregnancy if it's something that you don't feel like you're up to. Okay. And then the other thing was campaign finance. Do we want to get money out of politics or not? The Republicans want to keep money in politics, want to amp it up. The Democrats want to get money out of politics. And then the fourth reason, I think, to vote for Democrats, not just Barack Obama, but all Democrats. So that's why it's the simple voter's guide. Go in tomorrow and vote for Barack Obama if you agree with you know, my vision of America and yours and Jason's. Vote for Barack Obama and Joe Biden, but vote for the Democratic senator running in your state, and vote for the Democratic congressman. These are the people that share the values that we're talking about. The fourth one, and this is so important to me as well, is human rights. I was alive, as I mentioned. I was born in 1954, and the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, 1964 and 1965. You know, I was around then when literally the law was, did I freeze?
No, I'm listening to you.
Okay. I was around that literally the law in many states in the United States was that blacks couldn't drink out of the same water fountain as whites. Blacks literally had to be in the back of the bus. Blacks had to be on one side of an auditorium and couldn't mix with the, I mean, literally, they couldn't go into certain restaurants. That was literally the case not even 50 years ago in this country. And because we had John F. Kennedy and then Lyndon Johnson in 1964 and 1965, the Voting Rights Act, which allowed people to have access to voting no matter what, and the Civil Rights Act, we became what the Constitution required, which is, you know, that all men are created equal. But they're not. They're still not equal. And until 2010, and this is one of the most profound things, you know, if you believe in equality, up until 2010, a man or a woman who said, you know what, I want to defend my country. I'm going to go to Iraq. I'm going to go to Vietnam. Well, I'm going to go to Iraq because that's when it was for. And they say, great, you can do that. But if you're gay, Joe, or if you're gay, Jill, you can't say those 3 words, I am gay. If you say literally, I'm not making this up, if you literally say, I am gay, you would be kicked out of the United States military. And thousands of gay men and women were kicked out under this policy called Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So when Barack Obama came in, he said, that's not right, that's not fair. This is different than gay marriage. This is just basic human rights. That's not fair that someone should be willing to make the ultimate sacrifice for the United States of America and take a bullet in the head or a bullet in the heart. But they, even though we have a First Amendment that says freedom of speech, they can't say that they're gay. And the reason that that policy was in place was because the Republicans, including John McCain, said, no, it'll be terrible. It'll demoralize the military to have gay people, because all the guys will be thinking that if they take a shower, they're going to get assaulted. I mean, it's just crazy thinking. And even though Israel, one of, you know, probably the best army, the best military in the world, and other countries, every other country said, fine, if you're gay and you want to serve your country, you can do that. So a vote came up in December of 2010, and I sent the article that I wrote with Bill Nye, and we talked about this, and said, should the United States of America continue to have the policy where gay men and women are not allowed to say that they are gay. And if they say that they are gay, they are literally kicked out of the military, even though that was the career that they chose and the career that they loved. And guess what? In the United States Senate, 100% of the Democrats voted to repeal that policy. 100% of the Democrats voted to say, you know what, if you're gay, you can say you're gay, you can do whatever you want, as long as you abide by the rules of the Army. And almost every Republican senator, also in the House of Representatives, said, no, we want to keep this policy. If you're gay and you say that you're gay, we want you to be kicked out of the military. This was in 2010. This just was 2 years ago.
Why do you think that is, Richard?
Again, it comes back to the same thing.
Before you even go further, I'm looking at some tweets from all of you guys, and there's one from MAK75231, and she says, Addie and Summeralder, please let Mr. Green know he's giving a great and easily understood guide to what's going on. So these are coming in like crazy. So thank you, Richard. Keep going, because it's a phenomenal amount of information, and most of it I don't have in my head, and I think it's really allowing people to see this, and so thank you. Thanks for taking time to do this. So keep going.
Well, I really appreciate it, and for those of you who don't agree with me, and that's fine, this is all, I'm just stating the facts, and the reason that I'm able to state this is that I love politics. I think politics is the cutting edge of how human beings decide and define who we are as a culture, who we are as a society, who we are as a country.
Well,
and
I'm glad you do, buddy.
You're glad I do, but what?
I'm glad you like politics.
Well, you're one of the most savvy people in politics in the entertainment world that I know, Ian, and I'm just continually amazed at the nuance that you have about this.
Thanks, brother. But we're so happy to listen to what you're saying. So keep going. So this is good, because it is statistical, and this is stuff that that you can check up on. But I'm appreciating this. So keep going, because it's enlightening all of us.
And by the way, if people want to go, there's a breakdown that we have on ChooseYourAmerica.org, www.chooseYourAmerica.org, and you'll go and it'll say Issues Guide, and it's all of this stuff in black and white, 2 columns, one column for Mr. Romney's America and the other for Mr. Obama's America. And that's also Democrat and Republican, because everybody's pretty consistent now. There's not a lot of differences.
Right.
The reason I do this is I don't know if you know Rachel Maddow and the people, and Al Franken, who were on Air America. I was a talk show host for 3 years on Air America. And for 2 hours every weekday for 3 years, I hosted a radio show right after Rachel Maddow, before she went to MSNBC, and I just love this stuff. So let me continue. So the reason number 4, the big difference number 4, is basic human rights, gay rights. The reason that Republicans tend not to be in favor of gay rights is, again, religious. There apparently are some things in the Bible that imply that homosexuality is not a good thing. And as a result of that, people who consider themselves Christians, and this is just my opinion, are not in favor of giving any rights to people who are sinners, and being gay is apparently committing a sin. And I think that's where it stems. It's certainly not rational. I mean, how could you look at somebody who's literally, especially if you've not served in the war or in any combat, who's literally willing to take a bullet for the country and tell them rationally that they need to be kicked out because they happen to love another man or they happen to love another woman? That doesn't make rational sense. It's just kind of, to me, it's taking a religious theory or a religious interpretation and taking it very far.
Right.
So the other aspect of gay rights is same-sex marriage. And President Obama was in favor of civil unions and not in favor of gay marriage and same-sex marriage when he was first elected. And then he came to the conclusion that it's not equal. In other words, it's saying, okay, you can't be married, you can have a civil union. That's not equal to giving the same rights that someone would have who's heterosexual, who wants to get married. And so
Right.
Barack Obama recently came out and said, I am now in favor of same-sex marriage. But guess what? It's a state issue. And so every state gets to decide whether they have same-sex marriage. And here in California, Proposition 8, actually the voters voted against it, and now there's a lot of legal issues about it. But in the legislatures that are determining whether same-sex marriage will be legal or illegal in their state, almost every vote is straight down party lines. In New York, for example, same-sex marriage was finally allowed to be legal, and every Republican in the state Senate in New York was voting against same-sex marriage. And Mike Bloomberg, it's a great story. Mike Bloomberg, who was a Democrat, then he was a Republican, now he's independent, he literally communicated with those Republican senators who wanted to vote for this equal rights for gay people, but they were afraid that they would lose their seat. And he said, you know what? I got you covered. I will finance you. I will give you money in your campaign to make up for the money that you're going to lose because the Republicans who are not going to support you because you did the right thing and voted for equal rights and for same-sex marriage. So Mike Bloomberg is a real hero in that way, and he feels very strongly about equality. And again, Republicans against gays in the military, against same-sex marriage, Democrats for gays in the military, and generally for same-sex marriage. There's a few variations on this, but not very many. Did you have a question or a comment on that?
No, I was just listening. So no, I was just going through your. I mean, obviously, we know that we all know that it should be that the choice to choose who you love. I mean, the fact that there is a law on who you can love and how you can love them is, I think, to most people, whether in the religious community or not, people that I know, is a crazy notion that the government can tell you can or cannot be married to whomever you want. The comment I was going to say was I was just going through the list. Where are we? Are we on 5 or are we on 6?
I think we're on 5 here, and that is this is an interesting one. Assault rifles. You know, Jason was talking about this. You know, he'd be against guns being a right. In other words, he would want it to be like a driver's license, which is you got to kind of pass a test and it's a privilege. There actually is a huge difference between the parties on guns and assault rifles. Democrats agree that the Second Amendment allows people to own and bear arms. The Democrats are very, very much against the ability for an average person to own an assault rifle, an AK-47 or an Uzi. And in the mass shootings that have happened not that long ago, oftentimes there are these assault rifles which are not really used for self-protection. They're not really used for hunting. I mean, God forbid you go to a deer and you unload 50 rounds into a deer that's 50 yards away. To me, that doesn't seem like hunting, right? So there's no real reason for assault rifles unless you want to commit a mass murder, you want to actually go into the military. And so there was a bill, it was the assault rifle ban of 1994, and it was passed under Bill Clinton. And it was a 10-year bill, and it was designed to lapse at the end of 10 years. So it lapsed in 2004. And guess what? Since 2004, Democrats repeatedly, over and over and over again, have tried to reinstate this ban on assault rifles. And the Republicans have shut them down, shut them down, shut them down, shut them down. The Republicans are very much connected with the National Rifle Association, and they say, all guns, as many as you want, all kinds, we don't want to restrict the right for you to have guns. I think that's a basic philosophical difference. So Democrats are okay with people having guns, not okay with them having assault rifles. Republicans, not okay with any of those rights being taken away. You can have any kind of gun all day long, anytime you want. And as a result, assault rifles today are legal in this country for purchase. Republicans. So, anyway, let's talk about taxes. That seems to be a confusing thing. Really simple. The Republicans signed a pledge They literally signed a pledge to a guy named Grover Norquist, who's a big deal Republican guy. He's a guru of taxes for the Republicans. And the pledge was that under no circumstances, never, ever, ever, will they allow taxes to be raised. So here it was like 6 months ago, and remember when the United States was going to default because the debt limit was reached, and it's like, oh my God, the United States, we don't have enough money to pay our bills that we've already incurred. Remember that?
Yeah, absolutely. I was testifying in Congress that Thursday, like Black Thursday, when Reid. Yeah, Yes, I know it. Of course, absolutely.
And so what happened was that Obama said, okay, we'll raise the debt limit, and the Republicans go, no, you're not. We're not going to let you raise the debt limit unless you agree to make cuts, right? And that's never been part of the consideration. It's always been kind of a natural thing. We're going to raise it. The country's getting bigger. There are more debts. We still have plenty of resources. We're not going bankrupt, but we need to adjust for, this increase in our national debt, inflation, et cetera. And so it's always been kind of a rubber stamp thing. But the Republicans said, no, here's our chance. Here's our chance. We're going to get these concessions, like literally it was like at the other end of a barrel of a gun. We're going to force President Obama to make massive, like trillions of dollars worth of cuts. Obama says, okay, dudes, you want to do that? That's fine. I'll make cuts in order for us to get your agreement that will raise the national debt. But in return, we got to play fair. I want you to agree that we're going to tax the wealthiest people in America a little bit more to help pay for the 2 wars that we fought, to help pay for the expenses that we have. And tax rates, because of the Bush tax cuts, are the lowest rate they've ever been. Right? Republicans hate taxes on businesses, corporations, on individuals. And the difference in the Bush tax cuts is the difference between 35% and 39 point something percent. We're talking about 4%. So if I'm making, and if only for people making $250,000 or more, right, with that kick in. So if I'm making $300,000 and the Bush tax cuts are repealed and it goes back to 39%, I'm paying an additional 4% on $50,000. So what is that? That's $2,000 extra dollars. I'm making $300,000. Under the Bush tax cuts, I would pay, let's say, $30,000. Under the without the Bush tax cuts, I would pay $32,000. And for that extra 4%, over $250,000, the Republicans were willing to shut down the government and cause the American government to default on attainments.
Wow.
And that has been all, and that's been the sticking point. So there's another situation like that. They said, okay, we've got to come up with a budget. We've got to come up with this budget, and there is this, I forgot the name of it, unless we agree, and they had a commission, a super committee that got together and to work out this deal, and unless they worked out a deal, the military was going to be slashed and public programs were going to be slashed, and they still couldn't come up with the deal, and that's in fact what's going to happen, and it's going to be happening very soon, because the sticking point once again is the Republicans, because they signed a pledge to Grover Norquist, and philosophically because they hate taxes, they won't agree. They will not agree to raise 1 penny extra of taxes, no matter how many cuts the Democrats and President Obama have agreed to. So ultimately, if you believe that people who have done very well should pay a little bit more, in other words, more like the tax rates that existed under Bill Clinton when we were really, really great economically, and more like the tax rates that were under Ronald Reagan when we did also very well. If you believe that wealthy people should pay a little bit more, you should vote for Democrats. If you believe that wealthy people and corporations should pay even less in taxes, you should vote for the Republicans. In fact, this was a big issue in the debate that you were moderating for your fans, Ian, and the first debate as well, about $5 trillion in tax cuts, remember?
Right.
Because what part of Mitt Romney's plan, part of his plan is to reduce taxes over the next 10 years by $5 trillion for businesses and individuals, thinking that because of that, those people, those rich people, those job creators are going to have more money, and they're going to somehow, it's going to trickle down and it's going to help the economy. It's never happened. The tax rates have been incredibly low for the last 12 years. The Bush tax cuts and then still in place during the administration. Where's the trickle down? Where are the jobs? Where is the help that's happening? So Romney and Ryan's plan is to do even more of that. Give more tax breaks to wealthy people, and hope that that's going to help the economy. And every economist that I respect says no, because by the way, what Barack Obama has done for business is he's doubled the net worth of corporate America. When he came in, a month after he came in, a month and a half, the Dow Jones average, which is these major corporations, what's their average on the stock exchange, was like 6,700. It's now over 13,000. He has doubled the wealth of America through its corporations. And that has increased benefits for pension funds and all of that. And corporations are sitting on unprecedented amount of liquidity of cash, over $2 trillion. All corporations need to do is not have bigger tax cuts, in my opinion. They have to start spending that money.
Right. Wow. Whew.
So does this make sense, or is it too?
It's making so much sense. It's just, and I think everyone is equally as amazed as what's in your head. It's a phenomenal amount of information. It's a wealth of it, but it's necessary, and we're all learning. This is the whole. I mean, I know a lot of what you're talking about, but to hear it, your ability to take it and put it into the layman's terms that we ultimately will be able to digest and sort of utilize is wonderful. So I think what's that?
Can you go through that issues guide that's on chooseyoramerica.org? Go through it and pick something that you'd like to talk about.
Well, one thing, I think that, we've spoken about education, we've spoken about abortion, we've spoken about job creation, which is obviously the big one, understanding that the economics of green energy infrastructure and of conservation are extraordinarily important, and that's where I think the line between Democrats and Republicans becomes skewed. The Republicans trying to make the Democratic Party out to be a group of people who ultimately just want a bigger government, spends more money, that doesn't allow for private companies to create business, which they do, and sort of deregulate everything so they can have free reign. There's ultimate giant pitfalls in that. There is a tweet that I wanted to talk to you about from Catherine.
I've been talking enough. I want to hear from the fans.
Catherine Mathill, at Catherine Mathill. And that's the hashtag #ChooseYourAmerica. The U.S. is the country that uses genetically modified crops. And basically what is asking me, and at the time, Jason, what are our positions on GMO foods? Now, obviously, we have Prop 37, which is the bill that will make it illegal for food companies not to label GMO foods. And I think one thing is this is a very interesting topic going into this election, which is, again, free reign over corporations to, even something like a Whole Foods. Whole Foods now sells GMO foods, and they don't have to be labeled. And I think that, and I think a lot of the fans, what I'm noticing is, and I'm gonna ask right now, do you think that it should be a law that companies using GMO foods label them? And I think that there's an overwhelming, resounding yes. We do believe that we should know what's in our food, and if we are eating GMO foods and have have the ability to say yes or no, because ultimately consumer power is a huge thing. And if the government is not making it, man, it's the same way as someone says, oh, there's monosodium glutamate in this product, or there's red 40 in this product, whatever it is. We should know if we're getting GMO foods. And I think that this is going into this, again, what do you think about, or what can you maybe enlighten us on the fact of where the two parties stand when it comes to things like having Monsanto running our lives?
You know what?
And the healthcare implications that, you know what I mean, are a result of people eating foods that aren't natural. Baby, you know, we're trying to raise children on food that is less than adequate of what we should be eating, but yet there's a giant population and the demand to meet that. You know what I mean?
What's your diet like, Ian?
Well, my diet is it's I would say probably about 80% organic. I have access to, I use a water ionizer. I drink alkaline water. I have it hooked up to my tap and I basically make my own water, so I never use plastic. But I have a lot of access to really good food, and that is not even about my diet. It's about what happens in between Los Angeles and New York City. You know, even in my small towns in Louisiana, everything is fast food. We've designed this way of living that everything has to come very quickly in a bag that I can open up really quickly and eat it because it just came out of a microwave. And it's causing a lot of healthcare issues. And what do you think is the polarizing, what do you think are the black and white differences of these two parties, and why it's important to put President Barack Obama back in office? Because we're tired of living under this, and it does take a little longer than 4 years to fix all this. Right.
Well, there are a lot of issues, and congratulations on eating that. I had my friend Donna got me some food. You can see it. It's a I feel incredibly guilty because literally I'm eating, because this is what's in front of me and I haven't eaten all day. I'm eating a French fry, which is really not a good thing to eat.
Hey,
so
I would give my right arm for a French fry right now. I right now have Altoids.
Okay, well, this is we're really walking our talk, aren't we? Our diet of Ian Somerhalder, Altoids, Richard Green, greasy French fries. There's a lot of issues. By the way, if you are a fan of Ian's or you're on this call and you live in California and you are a registered voter, I implore you, almost as important as voting for Barack Obama and every Democrat for Senate and the House, in my opinion, in my America, is that we start to be honest about food. And we start to have a culture of disclosure and integrity and transparency and honesty, right? So if GMO foods are not a problem, why would companies spend millions and millions of dollars, like Monsanto and ConAgra and whatever, to make sure that they weren't disclosing that they were there? I mean, I saw a video going around. It's like, if GMOs were really good, they should put giant labeling on there. We have GMOs, yay! But the truth is,
exactly.
But the truth is, and I've spent a lot of time in Europe. Europe is way ahead of us on GMOs. Here's how GMOs are a problem. By the way, so vote yes on Prop 37. It will not cost you $400 an extra year. That is complete bull crap. Really? It's going to cost $400 a year for you to buy food because of what? The cost of the ink on labels of food that have GMO corn or GMO soybeans? Come on. Is that, first of all, GMO is unproven. It's unproven how healthy or unhealthy it is. Many people who have done research believe that because part of the magic of GMOs is that they make it so that they can raise crops that are resistant, right? That are resistant to bugs and kind of have internal pesticides in them. I don't know if you knew this. When you eat GMO foods, you're actually eating, in essence, the pesticides that have been genetically bred into the foods to make them more resistant to the animals, the bugs, that would otherwise be eating them. Think about it. Bugs, flies and beetles, whatever, they are naturally designed to eat these fruits and vegetables, right? So and that's been very costly for big agriculture. So they go, what if we can save money on pesticides, we can save our crops, we're going to genetically modify these fruits and vegetables so they have their own internal pesticide.
Right, but here's a question though I have for you. Sorry to cut you off, just while I remember it. But so I don't think that these these companies are doing it because, hey, they're saying, oh, I really want to get people sick. Let's grow these crops and get people sick. So the reality of it is that we have an issue that we know that there's something very unnatural about these GMO foods. But by virtue of the fact that we have such a high demand for massive, copious quantities of food, what do you think is our alternative? How do we still supply this gigantic, large growing population without using fruits and vegetable strains and that aren't resistant to all these bugs and beetles, and do we have solutions? Because I know that there are a number of solutions that companies have, but I think
there's two issues. One issue is, are we going to be honest about what's in your food?
Right.
Right? And if in fact there is an imperative just to feed the people on the planet to genetically modified foods, then let's just be honest about it. Say, guys, look at we've got 7 billion people to feed. We can't do it otherwise. Here's what it is. We're proud of it. We're going to work on ways to make GMOs safer and safer. That would be an honest way for corporate America and global corporations to communicate with people, don't you think?
Yeah, I agree.
And so that's all Prop 37 is saying, is that just disclose it. Just tell us what's in our food so that we can make a decision. If we want to pay more for organic, non-GMO food, then we want to have that right, just like we want to have the right to be able to decide whether we're going to have this baby or not. If you're a woman, you're talking about choice. But I think that a couple things. One is I think people should grow their own food.
Yeah, that would be pretty nice.
I love that. I've seen them. Have you seen like vertical gardens?
Yeah, absolutely.
You can turn skyscrapers into have vertical gardens. You can do them in the middle of cities. They produce oxygen. They absorb carbon dioxide. I mean, there is a green fantasy reality out there if we could just move beyond our present way of thinking. Albert Einstein, my ultimate hero, has this great quote. He was just such an amazing thinker and mystic. And he has a great quote. He said, "You cannot solve the problems of today with the same thinking that created those problems. You have to think outside the box."
Repeat that?
Okay. You cannot solve the current problems with the same kind of thinking that created those problems.
I love that.
In other words, you have to think at a different level, a different frequency, a different consciousness. And our consciousness is, we've got to feed all these people, we have technology that can yield more crops at a very low cost, and really a cost issue. Let's just do it. And Einstein would say, and I think Ian Somerhalder would say, well, you know what? We're really smart. We sent men to the moon a long time ago when we had computers that were nowhere near as sophisticated as my BlackBerry or your iPhone. Let's come up with a solution. Let's turn cities into urban agriculture locations. Let's have people grow things, in ways that we never thought of, but without genetically modifying them. I mean, there's so many crops. For example, one of the most beneficial crops in the whole world is industrial hemp.
Yep.
Do you know that hemp, which grows, you don't need pesticide for industrial hemp. It grows like a weed because, you know why?
No.
It is a weed.
Well, it is, you're right, it is.
Right, it grows like a weed, and it's like, it just grows, right? Hemp is one of the healthiest foods on the planet. I know Jason Mraz knows this a lot. Hemp, literally, if you have hemp seeds or hemp butter, it has incredibly high levels of omega-3s. It's got high level of protein. got a high level of fiber, and it's no bad fat. It's an incredibly easy. So we could have hemp, industrial hemp growing, and that would meet our protein needs for, millions and millions, if not billions of people. So there are out-of-the-box solutions. But ultimately, coming back to Prop 37, this is a really important conversation. My father said, "Oh no, it's ridiculous. I have to pay all this extra money," and it's like, Dad, wow. It just is a question of disclosure. And here's the bigger point. And this is a kind of sophisticated point, but I think that your fans are ready for it, because they wouldn't be attracted to you if they weren't available to think in this different way. Right. And that is, we have to get to a place where we start to factor in the true cost in the energy that we burn and in the food that we eat. For example, Mike Milken, this famous financial person, billionaire, estimated that a gallon of gasoline, if you factored in the military costs of the wars, the health care costs of the people with cancer from burning, fossil fuels, the climate change costs, the degradation of the environment for all of the oil spills that happen, if factored in the true cost of 1 gallon of gasoline, it would be something like $15 a gallon.
Wow.
Hamburgers. Do you know how much we subsidize hamburgers? Right?
No.
A kid in the inner city is only eating a hamburger with white bread buns, greasy hamburger, and veg. Okay, we're gonna move out. I can do this. We're on a conference call. We're in this great location in Santa Monica, and we're gonna go to another. Got to go to another room. But if you factored in the actual cost of what the damage that creating a quarter pound of beef would be, it would be $30, $40, whatever, because you're cutting down rainforests. You're cutting down rainforests, and not to mention you're adding to childhood obesity and type 2 diabetes and childhood diabetes, and creating all sorts of other health problems that who's paying for them? See, that McDonald's is not paying for them.
Wow.
And ExxonMobil is not paying for the cost of the Iraq War or the cost of climate change. That's one of the reasons climate change is such a big issue. It's like, oh no, we want to continue to make all the profits, and if there's anything happen, so Hurricane Sandy, what was that, $50 billion? If it would have been $10 billion without climate change, because climate change makes storms stronger, who's paying that extra $40 billion? But instead, because of the Republicans, we're subsidizing oil companies and actually giving them money rather than asking them to pay for some of the negative externalities, the other consequences of their product.
But also, I agree with you, but I'm going to raise one point, and I find myself even doing it. We have developed such a need for energy in our lives. Listen, this year I will take 80 flights this year. Think about this for a second. 80. Wow. Typically I take about 60 flights on average. That's a lot of flying.
Wow. That
is a copious quantity of fossil fuel. I have to drive to and from work every day, the Vampire Diaries set. Now we're coming out. We have hybrid and electric cars. Unfortunately, we have to blow the tops of mountains off for these batteries that we need. But we've developed a lifestyle that requires so much energy. And so for us to start using less, we have to start adjusting our lifestyles, which people don't want to do. I find it's actually quite fun to start figuring out how to adjust your lifestyle to get the most out of life, of your day, with using as little. I'm going to read something to you. Kim Klingler, who you've met,
yes,
who is the executive director of the In Somerhalder Foundation. I got this really cool picture from her, and it's a picture of I'm about to tweet it, but it says, think about it this way. We're killing people in foreign lands in order to extract 200-million-year-old sunlight. We frack our own backyards and we pollute our rivers, or we blow up our mountaintops for an hour of electricity when we could just take what's falling from the sky. How interesting is that? We think we're literally drilling into the ground, to extract what sunlight created 200 plus million years ago. We're hydraulic fracturing in our backyards, just killing our water supplies, killing wildlife like crazy. And we're blowing off the tops of mountains to produce all of these metals for our batteries. Yet we could literally pull this stuff from the sky. It's the same thought as who was the president that put the solar panels on the White House? Jimmy Carter.
Well, it was Jimmy Carter, and then they were taken off.
Who was the president that took them off immediately once he got into office?
Ronald Reagan, Republican.
Why would you ever do that? Why would you ever take solar cells off of the White House that were producing free energy, take them off, and make what statement? That's my question. That's what I can't understand. I'm going to tweet this right now because it's really a really cool thing, and it just makes you think.
Well, let me expand on what you said, because I love that, and that whole idea of like dominating the earth, right? Drilling in, sucking things out of it, right? As opposed to working in harmony with nature, because nature is saying, here's this infinite amount of energy in the form of sun and wind, and also tidal energy. I love tidal energy. I mean, you just put up generators into the oceans, and oceans, moving back and forth, and it just spins those turbines. And same thing with micro hydro, where you put them in rivers. So there's a great writer named Rianne Eisler. She wrote a book called The Chalice and the Blade, and then she wrote another book called The Power of Partnership. And she said there's basically two different philosophies about how you interact with the rest of the world, how you interact between men and women, how you interact between man and the rest of civilization, the rest of creation. And one is a domination mentality, and that would be, the epitome of that would be drilling and dominating the earth, right? Let's blow off the mountaintops, let's suck out the minerals, let's drill as far as we can into the earth. And it's a very sexual thing. We are dominating the earth to get our energy. Just like some men in certain cultures and certainly years ago had this idea that men dominated women. Shut up, woman. I am the dominant party here. You do what I say, right?
Right.
And then that's limited in terms of how far it can take civilization. The next step is a partnership model. So it's like, okay, Earth, you have these needs and you have these resources. How do I work with the resources in a way that is consistent with your needs, right?
Right.
Climate change is an example of the Earth kind of having a fever, and in essence, like when we have a fever, throwing off the germs, the bacteria that's causing the problem, the viruses. And so a partnership model of creating energy is to say, okay, it's like Tai Chi, it's like martial arts. Here's this incredible energy that you're giving me from the sun, from the wind, and we're just going to work with you. We're going to work with the ocean. We're going to work with the rivers and the streams to create energy, right? And just like in a healthy relationship, a man is not going to dominate a woman in the 21st century, I think. You want to work in partnership, where each gives of their assets and we compensate for their liabilities. So the Republicans, one of the ways to understand them is that because of religious ideas that man has, literally, it's stated in the Bible, has dominion over the earth and all of the creatures thereon. There is this idea that Republicans tend to have, which is we are the dominant species, we're the dominant culture, in America, all of that. And Democrats have a very different philosophy, saying, you know what, we may be dominant in some ways, but I really care about the people in Rwanda. I really care about the polar bears up in the Arctic. I really care about, the ecology of the earth, and I want to work in partnership with that. And it's a very different mindset. And again, I'm coming back, the whole Choose Your America thing, there is a very, very big difference that we get to make tomorrow. Right. And we're trying to highlight the differences in philosophy and values and policies between Barack Obama and the Democrats and Mitt Romney and the Republicans. And I'm not upset with people who may not know all of this stuff. I'm like crazy. I just love this stuff. And for over 40 years, I've studied it, and it's like, oh my God, I found the secret code. There are these different core values and everything about one party as opposed to another, and it's more diverse now than ever, ever, ever before. It's not like there's not one Republican who believes as I do, and there are very few Democrats who believe any differently than I do.
Right.
And I would say the same thing is probably true for you as well. So anyway, yes on Proposition 37, because we want to make sure that corporations are just honest and that they tell the truth. And if we need to include GMOs to feed the world, then let's at least do that consciously and volitionally.
And honestly, yeah.
Honestly.
Wow. Unbelievable wealth of knowledge, man. I really hope, I mean, I wish there was a way to quantify, or we could tell. I hope there are people listening with us, man, because this is what we need to know. This is what we need to know. I'm literally going to take a quick bathroom break because we're human beings, and like a conversation. Say we're having dinner. You know, I have my pecans and I have my tea, and where are you right now, by the way, Richard?
I am in a place called Cross Campus. It's a incubation facility in Santa Monica on between 8th and 9th on Broadway. Very close to one of my favorite restaurants, Raw. Giuliano's Raw. It's some great raw food. I want to thank the people at Cross Campus for giving us the space. Although
yes, thank you, Cross Campus.
Yes, good. In Santa Monica. And so you go take your bio break. Let's talk about the rest of the evening.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
This is so important, and the old style of campaigning is that you and Jason Mraz and some of the other celebrities we have would go to places like Ohio and Nevada and whatever, as Jason did, and would literally be, can you close that door, please? Literally be knocking on doors, and so in one day you could reach 200 people. And what's so beautiful about you and your network, Ian, and Jason and his network, is that we have thousands of people on the line right now having this conversation. I want to hear more from them, and I don't.
Yeah, no,
I'm not
I
on
agree.
So, what's the best way for us to get some? Do you want to read some of their questions? And I'll answer them. Perfect.
Absolutely.
Read some of the questions. Answer them while you go take a pee or whatever you're going to do.
A bio break. I like that. So here, listen. I'm going to give you a great. I'm going to give you a great question. There's so many amazing questions coming in. It's really awesome, man. It just sort of quantifies that people they're there and they do care. They do, and it's really cool that they're on with us. And thank you for taking all this time. So, let's see. Let's see here. Haha, we're getting some great, what do you call the little emoticons? I'm looking at a lot of are they called emoticons? With like the little faces and hearts and American flags and stuff. So here's one. Rob Carmichael says, can't wait to see the look on Ian's face, hashtag Choose Your America, if hashtag Obama gets reelected and he has to pay 75% in taxes. We're not in France. We're not going to pay 75% in taxes. This is the fear. Now listen, and by the way, very legitimate question, Rob Carmichael. I am in no way attacking you at all. Just offering up. I'm not a politician. I'm not an economist. But that type of, I think, fear is not a great place to come from. And hopefully, Richard, you can. I'm going to literally leave for 90 seconds. If you can elaborate on that, fill me in when I come back, I would love that, because I'm looking at a lot of these, and it's interesting because most of the tax questions are pretty much all from men, believe it or not.
You want to read another tax question?
No, I'm saying that most of the tax questions coming in saying, "Hey, you left winger," which it's not about that. I mean, I think we're all pretty fiscally conservative people. And what I dislike about the way that the system is set up here is that you either have to be a Republican or a Democrat. Other than that, you can't even play ball in the field. So the idea is that most of the tax questions saying, Ian, guess what? If Obama gets reelected, we're all going to, especially you're going to be paying, literally, I see this 70, 75% taxes, and I just can't. That's never going to happen.
It's not even close. I mean, what I talked to you before was raising the top rate from 35% to 39%. That's an awful long way away from 75.
Yeah.
And tell your fan, I would have a problem with a 75% top tax rate. Although it wasn't that long ago in the United States that the top tax rate was 90%.
Right, but I think we can all agree on. Well, I would have a massive problem paying 75% in taxes because I think that is a misuse of all of our money, and it doesn't incent any of us to work harder.
But hold on, let me ask you. Like in Denmark and some of the Scandinavian countries, right? If you were paying, and Jason Mraz was talking about this, if you paid 75%, but like everything was taken care of, complete health care and Social Security, instead of being a few $100s, was enough for old people to live on, and in other words, you kind of get what you pay for, and maybe in certain ways, if it's done in the right way, which it often isn't, and I'll agree with your caller, with your fan, the government, there are efficiencies that can be done. For example, what kind of infrastructure could we have if we paid a lot more in taxes? Could we have a new green, clean infrastructure that would save the United States the $400 billion a year? That's $400 billion a year that we send to Saudi Arabia and to Canada and out of the United States to buy oil. So if we increase taxes for a while, we created a new infrastructure. Let me tell one story on this to your friend. One of the great Republicans in history was Dwight D. Eisenhower, a former general. He was in charge of winning the war, World War II, for the United States and the Allies. In 1956, he had this idea that it'd be really cool for the United States to be connected by interstate highways. Up until that point, there were only state highways. And there were Republicans at the time saying, President Eisenhower, General Eisenhower, you're crazy, you're a communist, you're this. Government can't do that. That's not.
Wasn't that specifically for military strategic? Wasn't that also too to be able to mobilize military throughout the country?
Well, it was for two reasons. It was for national security, and Dwight Eisenhower, a five-star general, understood that. But also, enormous efficiencies for business. Right. Imagine how long it would take to get products from California to New York if you're taking just little state roads. You have to go.
Keep talking. Yep, keep talking. I'll be right back.
It's okay. Here's the thing. He's not an alien. He's not a true vampire. Ian Somerhalder actually has to go to the bathroom every once in a while. Anyway, so Dwight Eisenhower resisted the complaints of the Republicans in Congress at the time and said, you know what? And it was like $1 trillion worth of present-day expense. He said, it's not spending on things. It's investing in America. And if, in fact, we had to increase taxes to make investments, just like a corporation has to kind of tighten its belt and use some of its liquidity in order to buy another company or make an investment, upgrade their infrastructure, upgrade their computer systems, whatever, those things oftentimes pay off. So 75% sounds like a lot, but there are even circumstances where I think Ian would agree that for a short term maybe you want to do. The question ultimately is, are we in this together, or are we a bunch of individuals? And I think that most Democrats have a hybrid philosophy, and that is that there are certain things where private enterprise is fantastic and needs to be involved, and certain things where the government is better suited. For example, Hurricane and Superstorm Sandy. I think you would agree that if New Jersey had to handle it on its own, or individuals in the certain towns that were hardest hit in New Jersey or New York had to handle it on their own, that would be a problem. That there are economies of scale where only a collection of all of the individuals and their resources, which we call the government, can actually handle things. Fighting a war. Want New Jersey fighting a separate war in Iraq or Afghanistan? Or do you want all of us to pool our resources, come up with a common desire, intelligently and strategically and efficiently determine that or not? So one of the big issues on that is PBS. PBS, right? So Mitt Romney made a famous thing. He said he likes Big Bird, he likes Jim Lehrer, but he's going to defund PBS, and which would basically put an end to it. It's just a question. Is it efficient? Because what PBS provides is something very different than what NBC, ABC, CBS, and Fox and other for-profit television networks provide. Because these for-profit television networks are driven by one thing, and what is that? Bottom line. All corporations are required legally to maximize the earnings of their shareholders. That's their job. And so if that means that you don't put on Big Bird and you don't do the Muppets and you don't do Sesame Street because it's not economic, it's too expensive to produce or you can't get enough advertising or whatever, that you throw it away and you put on things that are more like Housewives of whatever that may not be as good for kids to watch, but it'll make more
Housewives of Sesame Street.
You know what, Ian? I think you're onto something, dude.
No, so wait, keep going. So you're right. That's exactly it. It's not. I grew up with Sesame Street, and there's some interesting.
And look how that turned out. You see, it was a worthwhile investment.
Look how terrible I turned out. And there's something to be said for understanding some really cool values when you're young. And it shapes our really young, really absorbent minds. Mm-hmm. Keep going, because I wanted to ask you.
Anyway, just the point was, and your fans' question, and I hear it all the time. Are we frozen?
Nope.
Okay, we're frozen for a second. And I hear it all the time, and this is the thing that seems to drive people towards Mitt Romney, and and against Barack Obama. It's my opinion that Barack Obama is a capitalist. He is a free enterprise guy. He believes in private enterprise. He does believe that if you build it, it is in large part because you built it, not that the government or society built it. But it's a hybrid. Literally, I mean, if you went to a public school, your community helped educate you, as opposed to if you went to a private school. And if you use the fire department, if you use the police department, if you use the roads, those were all provided for by a collective. You can call it local government, state government, federal government. I don't like the word government. I like the word, that we all come together, we aggregate our resources in a collective fashion and make collective decisions. And that's what government is best at. Because right. You can't do it. I was saying as you went out, what if in handling Hurricane and Superstorm Sandy, New Jersey was on its own, or the individuals in New Jersey were on their own?
They wouldn't have the resources to fix those.
They can't. And that was the thinking behind Obamacare. That hey, if we aggregated 300 million plus people and our resources, we could be more efficient in providing for the people who really need health care than if we kind of throw them out into the woods by themselves and let them fend for themselves. And I understand that it cuts across whatever it is that people who read Ayn Rand and The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged. It's all individual, but I think that's only great in certain aspects, and that we do need to come together as a community in others. So anyway, I'm done with that. Are there any more difficult?
Yeah, no. Let's look, man. No. I love it. I love it, man.
And you know what, Ian? Let me just say something.
Talk to me.
I've had this fantasy, and I want to just float this live in front of your fans. Not that kind of fantasy. And although I'm sure many people have fantasies about you.
Hello.
Hold on, Donna. Come on. You want to mention? So this is my dear friend for 30 years, my PR person, Donna Schumann.
Hi.
Hi, Donna.
I just want to. I just want to acknowledge you. I think you're one of the most inspiring and innovative, young and articulate, passionate, politically
savvy actor. I've had the pleasure to. I've been listening to you all day, all afternoon, and
Oh,
I just
thank
would
you.
love to have the opportunity to meet you sometime. And so appreciate you hanging in with us here.
Well, I am appreciative to you for doing this and providing this platform, and obviously helping him in what he does. This is, I think, informative. I mean, here's the cool thing, guys, is that there are most likely anywhere between 12 to 60-year-olds listening to what we're talking about here, and that's the idea. And what's so cool is just the idea of a hangout, having this conversation. I think that, again, Richard's ability to I told him once, I said, you help unconfuse me, because there's just so much to know, and this man has this sort of innate ability to unconfuse you and to sort of lay out the information and statistically, not just his opinion, but statistically lay out how things work, what the facts are. And once you allow someone to see the facts, then ultimately you've empowered them, and then they can make their own decision. And what he said earlier, he said, listen, if you believe X, Y, and Z, then by all means I respect that, vote for Mitt Romney. But if you don't, that's not the America I want to live in, if you don't believe in those things, I, for one, I'm not a politician. I never wanted to have, I don't have an agenda. I just want to live in the America that I feel that we should be living in. Some people say, well, that you're contradicting yourself, because ultimately that is an agenda. I think that we all should be able to vote on however we feel. I understand that. And I never wanted to bludgeon people on the head as to who they should vote for. And I never wanted to be that vocal about it. However, I understand now what is at risk, and I cannot be silent. I would be doing myself and this country, and ultimately, not sound too cerebral or dramatic, the world a great disservice if we didn't fight tooth and nail for what we believe in, and to not have us go back into the Stone Age, where women have no rights of what they can do with their body, where the EPA is dismantled. I don't want to live in a country where the EPA is dismantled, where it is a proven fact, it's said audibly all the time, the EPA, goodbye. You're causing too many problems. Your science isn't warranted, and ultimately it's really not good for our petroleum business. Rather than having, and you could listen to Jack Gerard, who's the CEO and president of the American Petroleum Institute, talk all day about the tens of billions of dollars that they've invested into green energy initiatives, whether it's Shell or Exxon, BP, whatever it is, over the last, say, 5 years. And then you ask them, because I was there sitting on an energy panel that the Washington Post put together a couple years ago, and where I got to speak, and Mary Jordan moderated it. It was the coolest thing ever. But I was listening to this man. I was listening to Jack Gerard give this on this panel, and people were asking him where this money went, and he didn't necessarily stutter, because this man is highly intelligent and knows how to speak on any given subject, but he couldn't actually place where these tens of billions of dollars they said they've spent went over the last number of years. And what you would think is say there is 50 to 100 years left of petroleum, but it's literally destroying our world. Wouldn't it make sense, a co-venture between big corporations and governmental bodies, to figure out ways to produce more efficiently, but put money into future alternative initiatives? But what happens is, as human beings, we say, no, let's take it as far as it'll go. It's like, let's just take this petroleum thing to literally the last drop, and then we'll figure it out. It's the most bizarre concept, and I don't want to live in that America. And for Mitt Romney, in a debate, sitting there saying, I'm going to bring that pipeline down. That's the first thing I'm going to do. Can you imagine bringing all this Alberta tar sands through the middle of our country? That, if you look at historically what these types of pipelines, how they're built, how they're maintained, and what they actually cause environmentally, and maybe they're saying it's going to produce tens of billions of dollars worth of jobs. No, it might create a few thousand jobs, but if you were to do a cost-benefit analysis of the environmental implications versus the amount of money produced from the actual fuel itself, it's crazy. the amount of fuel that it takes to use, that you have to use in order to produce a gallon of fuel from Alberta tar sand is staggering. I couldn't tell you, I couldn't quantify it. I don't know how many gallons of fuel it actually takes to produce 1 gallon, but I know that the numbers don't stack up. And so that's why, you know, I'm doing this, and that I'm unbelievably fortunate, very grateful that I met Richard. And I think anyone watching this, I honestly think that we should be grateful to Donna and Richard for allowing us to do this and putting all this together, and to Yap and TV and to, you know, Google Hangout for making this all possible. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to look at, because there's so many cool, just badass questions coming in. And
while you're doing that, I just want to introduce Ellen Lutwick, who is
Twitter queen. I'm trying
very
to be the
involved
Twitter
in
queen.
what we're doing on Choose Your America.
I have a 20-year-old son, so you're an inspiration.
hey,
And our
thank you.
graphics, Emily, who did all the graphics, is a student. She's a senior at the University of Kansas. So we have a volunteer who's done all the graphics for the campaign.
And did that issues guide that I'd love for people to take a look at.
Oh wow! I will tweet that. That's amazing. Thank you so much for doing this. This is a great honor, and I'm unbelievably grateful. You got a team of ladies back there, buddy. That's
Well, and also Laura O'Connor and so many people, because it's just and what I wanted to suggest before, and I've had this fantasy, and that's how we got to Donna, and she was raising her hand. She has a different kind of fantasy view than I do, and that is, you know, there is a really super simple way for people to become far more educated about these incredibly important issues for our future, and that is through documentary films. And so my fantasy for the past several years is to have a Friday night virtual documentary film festival with people like you.
Wow. That would be cool, man. Let's set that up.
And so, well, let's, because, you know, and let's do it soon, whether Mitt Romney is the next president or Barack Obama. I still think it's so useful for people to understand these issues. And so, for example, you know, we're talking about fracking. Mark Ruffalo, who is a great environmentalist, right? And Mark is supposed to join us a little bit later as well. Mark Ruffalo.
Okay, good. We have him today. Good, tonight.
He was gonna. I asked him. I said, "Would you host, kind of in a Google Hangout-y way?" And we're going to talk to Yap TV about it. And thanks to all, Kevin Surace and Sean and Trevor and Jill and all the people at Yap TV. They're putting a lot of resources to make this happen. And it was a little tricky technologically, but I'd love to see, like, every Friday night, let's all get together. Let's get a beer, get a pizza, a joint, whatever it is that you want to do on your Friday night, and let's watch, like, have Mark Ruffalo join us, and he talks about fracking because he spent years studying it, and we watch Gasland together and another film, and then we pick these films that really will educate people in where you have literally millions of dollars of resources going in to tell a story, and we get to sit back and we get to experience that and then talk about it.
Awesome. That sounds like, see, this is what's so cool about this idea that we can do this. This technology is allowing us to do this. I would be totally on board with that, and I think a lot of people would be on board with that. I think that would be a phenomenal way, and we can bring in a lot of cool people to do that.
Well, let's absolutely do that. Now, you had a couple questions you were going to read.
Yeah. Let me find it again. First of all, I do need to say this. I'm going to retweet this really quickly. See if I can get a comment out of that. No, I'm going to retweet it. Retweet, and then I'm going to say, no, you have to go study. I'm looking at or do homework. I'm looking at all of these tweets saying that, and it's really pretty awesome, but they're saying, you know, I have an essay due, or I have a lot of homework, or I have this test, but I'm learning more about politics and this election listening to Richard Green and Ian Somerhalder, and I'm saying I really appreciate that, but I'm sure somewhere someone is recording this, and we'll be able to You know what I mean? You have to go. If you have homework and you have an essay due, I know this is insanely important, but take take what you need from this, and then go get that done, and then come back to us, even if you have to lay in bed and hide from your parents. But please don't do something that you're not supposed to do and then blame it on me.
Right. Well, if I can give some homework to everyone else, here's the homework, and that is, so let's say, I don't know how many people we have, let's say we have 5,000 people watching right now. If those 5,000 people literally were moved to do something, and let's say the average person has, 200, 300, 500, 1,000 Facebook fans, or Facebook friends, and people on Twitter, if you tweeted out or you Facebooked out just the issues guide alone, or if you want to say, hey, just want to make sure, join here, Ian is on this Google Hangout, and I'm inspired, and I want you to vote for Barack Obama and all the Democrats, or I want you to vote for Mitt Romney and all the Republicans. For you to do that, I mean, let's have this be an incubator. Here we are at this incubation place in Santa Monica for new ideas. Let's have this Google Hangout be an incubator of a lot more communications that go on. So you can go to chooseYourAmerica.org and go where it says Issues Guide and send that out, and with whatever thing that you want to say to make sure that people vote, because I have to tell you, I'm very concerned about tomorrow.
Yeah.
The thing that scared me the most is that there was a poll in Pennsylvania. Laura!
Hey,
Laura.
guys.
Where are you?
I'm in Chicago. Hey, Ian.
Station.
You're in
at a
Chicago.
train station?
I'm in Chicago. Yeah. Wait, you got to see this.
What are you showing us?
What are you showing us? Oh, yeah, baby.
Oh, the Obama thing. I was just telling people. So Laura's been working very closely with the Obama campaign, and we were just talking about how it's going to be incredibly close. And last night I saw the polls that said it's 47-47 tied in Pennsylvania. If President Obama loses Pennsylvania and Florida and perhaps Ohio, it's game over. And we have a completely different Supreme Court for the rest of our generation, and we have a very different America. And according to Bill Nye, we will not be able to solve the climate change challenges. Just a few of those examples. So go to chooseYourAmerica.org, the issues guide, send it out with whatever message that you want. And if you care about this, get people to vote on either side. Laura, go ahead.
So can I just say one thing? I know you got to go back to work, Ian. I was listening as I was powering up. So thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you for having me. Thank you for putting all this together. You guys have been so phenomenal, and I'm so grateful. Hey, how's the energy in Chicago right now? Oh, I think we lost her. I think there's so much energy in that room that she went bye-bye. But she's amazing, and she's awesome.
Right, and very, very dedicated. So I want to hear a few more questions.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. I was going to tweet that. Let me see this. So, one of them is, I just had this one.
Here, let me read
That's
something I said. I just can't believe how much I'm learning in just the short amount of time that I've been listening. I am freaking out about this election, and I'm not sure who my parents are voting for, but I'm nervous about that too. I just want this nation to come together as one again. I hate the way our country has turned out these last couple of years. So talk to your parents and go over the issues with them. Here's the big challenge, and I don't blame anyone for this. It's like, if you spend, the average American supposedly spends like 5 minutes a week studying and thinking about, learning about politics and current events, and that's just not enough. And so I think it's vitally important, again, we're coming back to this whole theme, that you, Ian, are helping people get engaged with this, because I think politics and current events, it's the best reality show ever. It's not as good as Vampire Diaries, perhaps, but it's like better than any reality show. You've got sex, you've got intrigue, you've got money, you've got power, you've got all of that.
You got money and power. Hey, Laura, she's back.
Hey, sorry, it's a little noisy. I'm actually in the Chicago train station. But all I was going to say is that we've been encouraged. Saw the USA Today this morning in Ohio. I was in Ohio this morning. It said 48%. But most of the people I talked to in Wisconsin were voting for the president. And one of the things did you all read Deepak Chopra's thank you letter to the president, which just got posted on Huffington Post?
I have not done that yet.
On intent.com and Huffington Post, and it's a thank you letter to the president, which we will read later in the broadcast. But basically, the gist of it is that there's a lot of horrible things that could be happening much worse than they are. The president has been able to help stop so far, and I think that gets to what you were saying, Richard, about if we don't have more time to go down the path, it's going to be rather horrific. So we should just keep, imagining what we want and keep working hard to get it. And there's lots of ways to do that. So.
Well, I'm gonna find this. I'm gonna try and find this Deepak letter that I can't wait to hear. And just if you get a chance later, pop back in and say hi to us and let us know what's going on over there.
Or know that the number to call. By the way, I was only part listening. I just got an email from Graham Nash. Anyone a fan of Crosby, Stills, and Nash?
Hello, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want Graham to join us?
That would be awesome. That would be so cool.
Ian?
Yeah, can you hear me? Did I lose you?
Lose you?
Nope, there we are.
Ian, go ahead. Ian?
Yep, I'm here. There you go. So yeah, I think that would be awesome for him to join. I think that would be so cool. I think, a lot of the younger generation listening to this won't know, but I will definitely say just Google Mr. Graham Nash, and you will very quickly understand what a legend this guy is, and I'm imagining a pretty cool dude. I've listened to his music forever since I could walk, so he's a huge, not only a rock legend, but he's amazing.
Okay, good. So we're going to see if we can get Graham to come in, and we've got Sharon Lawrence who's going to be calling in. Sharon is an actress, environmentalist, and what is it?
7 o'clock.
She's coming in at 7 o'clock, which is in about a half an hour. And Mark Ruffalo. Let's get Mark Ruffalo in. Do we know how to do that?
I just want to make an announcement that Sharon's going to be viewing. They did an amazing video. It's called the LOVE Love Voting Video that Laura knows all about, produced by Julie Bregman. And it features Sheila E., Amy Brenneman, Saida Garrett, Fergie, Sophia Bush, Brenda Russell, and many, many more. And so we're going to show that at 7 o'clock, and Sharon's going to be coming in as well. So stay tuned.
That's awesome.
So and go ahead, we're going to try to get Graham in here and some other people, and just this Google Hangout on election. And so Ian, let's read a few more questions if you have any.
Yeah, let's do it. Oh, this is interesting. This is actually interesting. She said, I'm not against Romney or Obama. I extract what they say and wish they could be combined. Oh, that would be a hail. That's what you refer to as a Hail Mary pass. But this one right here, do you think that this is actually an interesting, and the reality of this is no, because we've become so different and polarized. From Nina Chiquita, nice. Do you think that if Obama gets reelected, the Republican Party might be split and reform itself? And unfortunately, I can't imagine that happening, but I think that, you know, Mitt Romney actually made a good point, which there are very few that he makes, but one was the success of Massachusetts and the understanding of, you know, that he had a completely Democratic Senate, and that he worked with them. And you know, I remember sitting that Thursday when they were meeting the debt ceiling crisis, as we can call it. I had been testifying in Congress on a multinational species conservation funds reauthorization act, which was H.R. 50, and two other bills. I don't remember which ones, but it was about international conservation of species, because it's how you quantify it and turn it into national security issues like Somalia. You know, no one went to Somalia and said, listen, if you overfish your, quote me on it, $10 million a week or something, using our naval boats to patrol the waters off of the, you know, the coast of Somalia to keep Americans and to keep commercial ships safe. Well, that you have to be able to go across the aisle. And I was having a lunch, and I was with Senator Udall, a Republican senator, and I said, sir, I said, I don't understand why I'm here. And it was all members of Republicans, members of Congress, members of Senate. And he said, you know why you're here? He said, because we can't talk to each other anymore. And he said, you can. You can reach across the aisle. You can talk to both Democrats and Republicans alike. Will talk to you as an equal, because everyone has something to gain. And I thought it was such a surreal moment, having a luncheon in the Capitol while this whole debt ceiling thing is going on. And I realized that it is that. It is that. And I think that if you know, filibusters suck, and that if you have a Congress or a Senate that is going to gridlock and lock up every vote or every bill that the president wants to pass, then we'll have another 4 years of stalemates. And that in and of itself is extremely dangerous. So to this person, Richard, I think that we would say, what would we say to that? I mean, it's highly unlikely, but maybe what do you think is a result of what would happen? Do you see any kind of positive notions in the future when the president gets reelected?
Well, let me address that. You've raised some really important things, which are part of these 10 reasons as well. Mitt Romney talks a lot about how he was able to go work across the aisle and get things done in Massachusetts. But here's the thing. Not to take anything away from him, but to take everything away from him on this one thing. And I'm not being partisan, I'm just giving the facts. If you were the governor of the state of Massachusetts, which is a very democratic state, and 80+% of the legislature is Democratic, right? And you say, you know what, I'm going to come up, I want to lower taxes, and I want to just give money to oil companies, and I want to be against pro-choice, and I want to be against gay rights, and all of the things that he's saying now. The legislature in Massachusetts, in Boston, would go, and here's a symbol, they would take, you know, and they would give him the finger and say, you know, we're not going to work with you at all. You're not going to get anything done, sir, not one thing. You're going to be an embarrassment, a disgrace. You're going to have 4 years as the fix-it guy, and you're not going to accomplish one thing. So Romney, a really practical, smart guy, goes, well, let me actually compromise. Let me become more moderate, more liberal. Let me sit down with these guys and let's work something out, right? And he worked across the aisle because he had to.
Right.
Obama, for 4 years, in my opinion, has desperately tried to do the same thing. But you know what happens? Anytime that Obama wants to raise money for anything that might involve raising taxes, the Republicans, because they've signed this agreement with Grover Norquist, they say no.
Right.
Not like, let's compromise, you want us to raise $500 billion more through taxes, let's say we'll do $125 billion. No, it's zero. It's no. There's been no compromise. And so that creates gridlock. What are you going to do? what are you going to do if you're Barack Obama and you want to, for example, increase funding for clean energy infrastructure so that China doesn't get to make all of the money for solar panels for the next 30 years?
Right.
You go to Congress and they say no. I mean, I honestly, I pay attention to all of these important bills that come down, and Mitch McConnell, the leader of the Republicans in the Senate, has the ability, because it takes 60 votes to overcome a filibuster, his ability to say no, 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 no. And that's what he's done, and I mentioned it before. He's done that because his number one job, as he sees it, is to defeat Barack Obama in 2012. And I just would hate to give him the satisfaction. Literally tackling Obama, resisting him on every single thing in the hope and change agenda that Obama was elected to come forward, and then him escape completely guilt-free and be able to have taken down the President of the United States, in part maybe because he's black, but definitely because he's a Democrat.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
So there's an answer. There's an answer. And I sent you an article that I wrote, and it was called the 0.0001%. So we had the whole Occupy movement. It's like, hey, the 99% versus the 1%. We only need 0.0001% to create heaven on earth in whichever way we want. And that's the important point. All we need is 279 human beings out of over 300 million human beings. 279 people who believe the same way can create nirvana in either direction, either in the Republican direction or the Democrat direction. Let me tell you why. You need 218 congressmen in the House of Representatives to be a majority and to pass any legislation. So if the majority party, let's say the Republicans, who are in the majority now with Speaker John Boehner, and if they said, we want to make sure that women never, ever, under any circumstances, have an abortion. If they're raped, if it's incest, whatever, we want to make sure that that's the case. And in fact, that's what they say. So that's 218. They have more than 218. They have a 25-person majority in the House of Representatives. If it goes to the Senate, they got 60 senators, which is enough to overcome a filibuster that would be put down by the Democrats, because the Democrats would say, no, we have to filibuster this. We can't allow this to go through. And if the Republicans had 60 votes in the Senate to also pass that bill that says that women never, ever, ever in a million years can have an abortion, no matter if they're raped or whatever, under gun, held with a knife or a gun, doesn't matter. 60 Republicans in the Senate agree. That passes. So it passes Congress, passed the House of Representatives, 218, passed the Senate, 60. And then there's only one more human being that needs to be involved. So that's 60 plus 218 is 278. Then we only need one more person if we're Republicans, and that is a Republican president who will sign it. And then it becomes the law of the land.
Wow.
And conversely, if you have 218 Democrats in the House of Representatives say, you know what? Instead of spending $400 billion to buy oil from other countries, let's, over the next 10 years, let's spend $400 billion or $4 trillion, and let's be completely energy independent on clean, renewable, sustainable sources of energy that do not emit carbon gases.
Right.
Could solve climate change and be, at least to some extent, and then be a leader, a moral and inspirational leader for the rest of the world if we did that. And so 218 Democrats said, yeah, we want to do that, here's the money. 60 Democrats who believe in that, who are aligned philosophically, which almost all Democrats are, in the Senate, boom, you got 278, and then you have Barack Obama or a pro-environmental, pro-clean energy president who signs it. 279, you create environmental nirvana. That's all we have. And so when people go to the polls tomorrow and they want what we're talking about, what the value is, clean energy, more rights for women, pro-choice, more rights for gay people, wealthy people pay more of their fair share, assault rifles to be off the streets, no Keystone pipeline, no subsidies for oil companies, and you want that, then you have to vote for Barack Obama, the Democrat running for Senate in your state, if there is one. It's not in my state. There's only 33 running. And the congressman, and there's definitely a Democratic congressman or a congressional candidate in your congressional district. You have to vote straight Democrat if you want that. Okay?
Right.
And if you want the opposite of that, then you have to vote straight Republican. Again, Choose Your America. Go look at the issues, www.chooseYourAmerica.org, and go to the issues guide, and it'll give you as clean and clear as we've been able to put it down, the positions on some very important issues.
Yeah, wow, man. Yeah, I'm gonna retweet that. I am going to retweet that this the chooseYourAmerica.org because it's really amazing. You know what?
I'm gonna get you that.
Huh?
Okay, hold on. The Yap TV people. Okay, the Yap TV people just sent me an email or a text that says, "Can you guys announce a 10-minute break?
Yeah, of
we
course.
We need to reset the title for Ian, etc. Say you'll be back at 6:45. Then we can start again. Tweet about Graham Nash and Mark Ruffalo coming up." And the here, can you see that? I don't know if you can see it. Can you see the words in the bottom?
Hold on, let me see. Technology needs a pee break. I love that.
Technology needs a pee break. Okay, so let's give a hand to those people at TV up in Silicon Valley who need a pee break.
Yeah, guys, thank you. Yeah, TV, thank you guys for doing this.
And we'll come up. We got Mark Ruffalo, probably Graham Nash, if you got my email. Sharon Lawrence and some others. We're at Cross Campus in Santa Monica. And if anybody wants to, Ellen, if they want to communicate to the Choose Your America people, if they want to go on Facebook, and it is
Choose Your America.
That's so complicated. Go to Choose Your America on Facebook, and you can like us and be part of what we're doing. And
hey, wait, hold on. When do we come back?
Okay, what time is it now? We'll come back in 10 minutes. So it's now 6:37 California time. So we'll come back at
say 6:48.
6:48 California time. Everybody, don't go away. And this is an opportunity for you to invite people back. You know, to join in. You can't have all the fun and learn all this stuff. And I want tough questions, and I know Ian does too. Ian, man, you totally frickin' rock. I agree.
You rock.
No, stop that, really. I agree with Donna. Donna wrangles celebrities for a living. She's one of the top PR people that does celebrity environmental and social cause events here in Hollywood. And
including a Tarzan concert in Vancouver called Tunes Not Tankers, coming in the spring, and I'd love to invite you to Vancouver.
She's Canadian.
I'm coming, baby.
You know, Canadians, they can't stop talking about Canada. And I have a slightly different view. I say blame Canada, but it's all
It was a great song, but it's a beautiful neighbor. Hey, so listen, I'll see you guys in 10 minutes. And
tell people to join us.
Yeah,
okay.
What is it, Facebook? What is it? What is it?
Facebook is Choose Your America.
Choose Your America on Facebook, and Twitter is
2012 Your.
2012 Your. 2012 YOUR. Okay, guys. See everybody. Our cram session for the 2012 election continues in 10 minutes.
Got it, guys. Bye, guys.
So Richard, would you